Are Joshua and Jeremy going to be here?
Joshua.
Let's call this meeting to order. Do you have any public comments about items that are not on the agenda? Just general comments? I see none. New business.
Okay, this is item 1, boat rental, section 2-71, vehicle sales for discussion of vehicle rental within the city of Cocoa Beach. Representative Tanja McCoy, Director of Development Services. Recommendation, discuss.
Mayor, if it's okay for the evening, most of the items are with our Development Services Director, so I'm just going to let Tanja take this. She's the expert in this field of development services, so she'll handle most of those questions and concerns and comments.
Sure.
Go ahead.
So, I'm just gonna go up here and.
Just real quick, City Manager, do you know if Joshua's going to be here tonight?
Yes, sir. There's a absentee form in. He will be absent this evening.
Okay.
He is going to try to call in, so I'm going to put my phone out. He said it would not be right away, but it would be midway through the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Making me not look late. Tanya, there's an IT guy behind the curtain.
Oh, we don't have the.
Mayor, I have Commissioner Joshua Jackson on the speaker.
Thank you.
Okay, so starting off, we found that there are, we're talking about boat rentals, but our code specifically, it looks like it was originally designed to address commercial sales and rentals of, commercial sales of vehicles within the city of Cocoa Beach. So looking at our ordinance code,
Tanja, can you hold 1 second? Nathan, can you get the speaker on? The speaker's not on. Commissioner Jackson, can you hear? He's on.
I can.
Okay, thank you, sir.
This one?
We're not hearing.
she said,
Her voice.
oh, is it on?
Just pull it up, yeah. Or,
Now we can hear you.
Okay. Can you guys hear me now?
it's a little better, still faint, but it's better.
Okay. So basically, the ordinance code that we're looking at is the section 2-71, vehicle sales. And again, this code was, it looks like it was intentional to be written to address vehicle sales and commercial vehicle sales. And our code really doesn't speak well to residential vehicle sales. There is some language in here. The code specifically says it's not intended to, it's really written to allow citizens to sell vehicles on their property, and these are the guidelines for doing so. Some of the things that seemed a little bit more like we need to talk about is, for example, item 6, only one vehicle offered for sale is allowed on any one parcel at any one time within 6 calendar months. So again, we're talking about vehicle sales. So our code really doesn't address vehicle rentals, and this code is kind of like it's going backwards and forwards. Are we talking about commercial sales, or are we talking about private sales, which would be in the RS1 district? And then item D is what I think most of us had been struggling with, is that the commercial rental of any vehicle is prohibited within the city of Cocoa Beach except as an accessory use within a transient lodging facility of 50 units or more. Well, if you look at the definition in the code as to what that is, we can clearly see that any motorized automobile, motor scooter, golf cart. A lot of those things are currently being rented or sold within the city of Cocoa Beach, and they are not attached to a transient lodging facility of 50 units or more. So as staff, I'm trying to get some guidance from commission as to what your thoughts are in terms of this code. What would you like to see happen in terms of addressing the issues that the code has proposed for us?
So for an example, e-bike rentals are all over the place and they're not at units of 50, transient units of 50 units or more.
Yes.
So do we need to change that because times have changed and e-bikes are a big thing and all that? And how do we, what would be the suggestion on how we would do that?
My suggestion is to break this into commercial vehicle sales as well as commercial vehicle rentals, and then have a separate code that addresses private or, vehicle sales and rentals.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, it just makes sense. I think originally when this ordinance came out, it was probably more geared towards, it was probably came out before the internet, I would assume. So it was probably geared more towards.
I was here then.
Wow, you're what?
You're a long.
Yeah, so, I think, like you said, times have changed. We got Toro, people are renting cars through Toro, renting boats through Get My Boat, renting scooters, bicycles, golf carts, so, in my opinion, I think if you want to rent your stuff, you should be allowed to do it. So I don't see why we should do this. And also for commercial use as well, especially some of these places that are commercial really are just prime. The highest and best use would be to allow them to rent some types of stuff like kayaks or e-bikes or surfboards or whatever it is from a commercial location. So to me, it just makes sense to different times. Let's move with the times. Let's allow people to make a little extra income to subsidize, their bills.
Yes.
You're saying delineated by commercial versus residential.
No, I'm saying, right now it says commercial transient only can
50
have
units,
rentals
right.
if they have 50 units or more. Well, there's plenty of commercial properties that aren't transient.
Right.
That, and don't have 50 units or more that are doing rentals of, for example, e-bikes.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure they're getting a stipend for allowing that to be on their property, but they're not actually renting them. The people that go and grab the thing and put in the QR code and get on the app are the ones that are renting it. But they're allowing the use of their property for the rental. So I think we need to, figure out what we want to do with that. But my biggest issue from, talking to people and reading correspondence that I've received is the, basically commercial rental from private properties of, motorized watercraft in the lagoon and in the canals.
Are you referring to what we had going on about a year or two ago?
Well, that was a commercial establishment, but I mean, if I wanted to rent my 13-foot whaler, of course I'm liable for whatever happens, and I got to have the insurance.
You would have to have insurance. And
Right, and I wanted to rent it to you, and you could show up at my house, fortunately it's a small boat, so there wouldn't be a million cars, but if you had a 12-person pontoon boat, and you wanted to rent it, rental operated, 12 people, you have multiple cars on the street, and then, of course, you're liable for whatever happens in the boat, but I just don't think, I would like to think that we could write something, and I'm willing to hear public comment, but I'm willing to think that we should write something that says that, you know, if you're gonna rent stuff out of your backyard, that it needs to be owner, you know, driven, occupied. I mean, if you are have a six-pack license and you have, you know, the Coast Guard authority to take people out and you have the insurance for that, then you're the captain of the vessel and you take people out and you're not just letting them run away with your boat and who knows what could happen. They don't know the waterways or whatever.
The problem with that is, how are you going to enforce that, for one? So it's like you're making an extra rule that, for one, you would have to have people running the canals. You're making a law that's basically unenforceable.
But I don't think there's gonna be there's not that much of that going on. And like I said, I'm willing to hear public comment. But I don't think there's a big demand for that at the current time that's not owned,
And two, actually,
occupied by somebody that's.
Well, we
Two-
do have some recommendations from the city attorney when they did this, they looked at this and
would you like to?
yeah, I'm just trying to help out with
Okay.
what you guys are saying. Like when you said well, we have to make more rules. She kind of went through, I guess the planning board kind of had this discussion.
Yeah.
And our attorney did some research and found some regulations. Are these state regulations or?
So this is, I actually am,
For 2022, and honestly, I'm looking at it.
so I'm actually
Planning board recommendations.
I'm very familiar with this. I mean, in full transparency, I do yacht rentals, so I will tell you.
But I'm not trying to curtail that.
I know, but what I'm saying is,
Oh,
all this stuff, so you need to already register with the state for a livery permit. You need to have $1 million liability insurance. You need to have a boater's safety course. You need to, depending on the size of your vessel, you also need to document it with the Coast Guard and all that for commercial use. So there's lots of stuff that you already have to jump through in order to do it.
The way you do.
Well, no.
But if you wanted
The
to,
illegal
if you wanted to rent your boat to me, and I don't have the captain's license,
You,
and I probably could not wreck your boat, but,
no, so legally, you would still have to carry through.
are you gonna teach me the boating safety course and go through the map of the city? of
No, you're
Cocoa Beach?
supposed to show proof of it. It's actually part of the whole, if you, like I said, you can rent your boat through Get My Boat, Sailo, Boat Setter.
You're saying all these recommendations are already intact?
Already, all these are already, the only thing that I would say, and actually, I'm not trying to hate on jet skis because I love jet skis, but, you just can't go slow on a jet ski, no matter how hard you try.
But then it says jet skis are prohibited. It says jet skis.
I know, that was a recommendation, but, so, the thing about anywhere you go in Cocoa Beach, no matter where you rent a boat, it's at least a half an hour until you can get to a fast zone. So, if you're gonna rent a jet ski for an hour or 2 hours, you're gonna spend an hour of it just putting around. So, it almost doesn't make sense to rent jet skis anyways, just because most people aren't gonna rent a ski for more than like 2 hours. But,
And there's a place right in Merritt Island that rents them.
Merritt Island rents, they have, Marker 24 rents boats, right next to the bridge rents boats. So we already have rentals. Cape Canaveral rents boats, Satellite Beach rents boats. So for us to make extra rules on top of rules, to me, it just seems,
No, I'm just saying from private RS1 residences on the canals in Cocoa Beach, I would like for there not to be motorized vessel renting.
I mean, I think it gets close to the Airbnb issue, right? You turn in effectively a residential house into a commercial operation when it turns into this every single week. and we can't restrict that by commercial, but that's the
I mean, it's the
complaint
same
that
as, like I was
citizens are
saying,
saying for
Yeah.
the Airbnbs, or I should say short-term rentals, but you get the idea, it's legal, but then it's turning into effectively a commercial operation.
the same as renting your car through Toro. I mean, it's just really hard. For you to police this, it's just, you're just making a rule that you're not gonna police, I'm just saying. It's no sense to make more rules and make it more complicated.
Yeah,
when-
but the thing is, we don't have, that I'm aware of, a problem right now. So if we put rules in effect to say we don't want to have a problem, then it's a deterrent for bad behavior.
We don't have a problem, why?
I don't see, yeah, if we don't have a problem, I don't see why
Well-
make a problem out of it. We could always make a problem out of it later.
And how do you know if we don't have a problem yet, and if the problem does transpire, how do we know the stuff we put in place actually applies to it? Because we don't know
Well,
exactly
if
what
you,
the problem's gonna be.
let me give you an example. There are a lot of rules that the city of Cocoa Beach has put in place after the fact, when there were issues in the city, which allowed the people that were non-conforming to be grandfathered in because the rule wasn't in place before they started doing what they're doing. So what I'm requesting is putting the rule in place, and then if we have a problem in the future and it's a violation of the rule we have in place, then it's up to us to enforce it.
So you're saying we have a rule right now to grandfather anybody in if they're already doing that?
Now, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to mention, because it's after October 1st, and so that SB 170 that I sent y'all an email about has started, and there is something going forward that it's a good idea, if we anticipate a problem, to go ahead and get something on the books, because once somebody starts something, then if they challenge it within, and I'm trying to remember the exact time period, but I think they have to challenge it within 90 days after it's adopted, then they can ask for attorney's fees on the other side, for the city to pay that, and it just becomes more difficult. So things have changed starting October 1st, and it is easier to try to anticipate things now. And I do want to mention these lists of possible regulations. These 9 things, they didn't come from us, they came from the planning board, and I was asked to research them to see if they'd be legal under Florida law. So that's what that is
Yeah,
about.
and the second part is actually Becky's responses. So where it says number 6 is no jet skis, and then Becky responded, she thinks that we could prohibit this, however, it would be difficult to enforce as well, so.
So can we,
That was one of the things that she had said earlier.
No, you said it.
so let's go to public comment and see.
Yeah, anybody have anything to say out there? Go ahead.
Jack Kirschenbaum, 207 Antigua Drive. We were asleep at the wheel a decade ago, and now we have dozens, maybe hundreds of Airbnbs in our neighborhoods. And there's 5 on my street, and I can tell you it's no longer a residential street, it's a commercial street because of that. We're now at the point of looking at the residences in our neighborhood and wondering, what can I rent out of my backyard? 10 kayaks and have 10 cars parked out front? About 6 years ago, 2 doors down was a commercial fisherman, and he chartered his boat 3 or 4 days a week. We couldn't use the backyard. They were cleaning the fish off the dock. They were filling the gas tanks with diesel fuel off the back dock. The flies were so bad in the summer, we couldn't go outside. The diesel smoke was putting a nice film over our umbrellas out back. I can tell you, if you want to really destroy the neighborhoods, if you don't want single-family residences occupied by people that live here, allow more commercial activity in the neighborhoods. We already have a declining population of residences, declining homestead, declining school attendance. If you want to keep families and people like us in the single-family neighborhoods, do something to restrict the further commercialization of the neighborhoods. You know, I'm 70. I'm not going to be here in 10 or 15 years probably worried about this. But you folks out there, you're going to see a sweeping change in what we thought were great residential neighborhoods if you allow for the commercialization of them. Thanks.
Thank you, Jack.
Good evening, Orson Tarver, 178 June Drive. So one thing I wasn't clear at the beginning, I saw that Tanja put up that ordinance for boat rentals for the hotels over 50. So is that enforceable today, meaning that in a residential neighborhood, it is currently prohibited to operate a boat rental business behind your house? Just, I want to understand that topic first.
Again, it talks about a transit lodging facility, so I don't think, of 50 units, I don't think your residential home has 50 units in your neighborhood. But
Okay.
that would be the city attorney's interpretation of the code.
It's, okay, you,
I'm just asking, what,
The-
today, the code today, is it prohibited? Like, it seems to me what it says, it's prohibited, but I'm just asking, is it in fact prohibited or not?
well, it says the commercial rental of any vehicles, and depending upon what is determined to be a commercial rental, you know, it's, I don't know whether, you know, somebody in their backyard renting one boat is a commercial rental. I think that commercial rental is something like what we had, and now I'm not remembering the name of it, but
Wildlife, water sports.
yes. That was definitely a commercial rental facility. So that was definitely prohibited. One of the reasons this is on the agenda is because this is about as clear as mud.
Okay, fair enough. So I can give, so I was on the planning board when we went through that memo. So just I know, Jeremy, you were on the Board of Adjustment Journal Wildlife Water Sports, or you were not? No, I'm sorry, but you were commissioner during the wildlife water sports situation.
Yeah.
Okay. So whenever the discussion when we were having on the planning board was kind of as an offshoot of that, because what happened there was really bad and it caused a lot of problems, a lot of upset residents. I think you guys probably got some emails on that. So anyways, so the planning board, we thought like, what if this happened in a residential neighborhood? Like how disruptive that would be. So we tried to come up with some ideas. So that's where the memo came from. And then we got to a point of wondering, you know, today in the current code, is it allowed or not allowed? So anyways, but really the genesis of it was that wildlife water sports had a tremendous impact on the community. And it took the city close to a year of, this was before you were here, and I think, yeah, there was Jim McKnight and Randy, so we lost some of that history, but it took them close to a year to address the issue, and it was, so anyways, that's what we were that was the mindset coming up with these ideas, is like, how could we prevent something like that happening in our residential neighborhood? So that's the background on that memo. But I think, you know, at the end of the day, to think about is, I think like what Jack was saying is, I mean, these are residential neighborhoods. The commercial activity, I guess, is something we have to figure out, but if you have a boat rental business next door to you, the impact, I would imagine, could be severe. I mean, you could have someone with a pontoon boat as, you know, as Skip said, if you have 6 or 8 person or 10 person pontoon boat, you know, you're gonna not only have impacts on water side, but you have the parking, where will those cars park for those customers? On the water side, you're gonna have the impact of the vessel operations, fueling and stuff. I know at Wildlife Water Sports, they actually got shut down because the fueling tank was so unsafe, it could have potentially damaged surrounding buildings. So you have to think about if you're gonna regulate something, you have to think about how you're gonna regulate everything that goes to support this commercial operation, which I believe boat rentals are commercial. And then you have to think about like, you know, the operations of the rentals. You know, a pontoon boat, I think Wildlife Water Sports was doing 1 to 2 hour rentals, if you like. I mean, you know, so if you live next door to a house that was doing 1 hour pontoon boat rentals, that would be a lot of activity, I would think. And then you think about, like, probably one of the most popular things is the bioluminescence. You know, during bioluminescence prime time, it doesn't get dark till 8:30 at night. I mean, if you're turning a boat rental every 1 or 2 hours, so people are doing that, so you're talking about potentially every day of the week, you're gonna have these boat rental activities occurring, you know, potentially right next door to someone's house. And I think that would be really concerning to someone, just like the Airbnbs. I think Airbnbs, the best example is like, if there's 1 or 2 on your street, you don't notice it, but as soon as the one happens next door, I mean, you notice it pretty quickly. So the other thing of caution I would think is that I know that right now we don't really have much of a problem. I identified one and submitted the information to you guys that is actually somehow doing it through the Airbnb platform. There may be a few others. But I can tell you 10 years ago, I never thought Airbnbs would get to the point of 600 something houses being Airbnbs. I can't help but to think maybe in 10 years, we might look back and go, you know, gosh, we thought those boat rentals wouldn't really be that big of a deal. And we have 200 boat rentals now in the city. I don't know if that would happen, but I think that's the concerns. And I think however this is approached, I mean, you got to really think about what the impact in the surrounding community is going to be when you have a boat rental operation. And I don't know if you could have 1 boat, maybe 2 boats, I'm not sure. But I think, like Jack said, I mean, it really is just the commercialization of the neighborhoods and all the impact that brings. And I mean, if you had a pontoon boat rental turning over like that, I think that'd be very concerning. But then, like, you know, I think Skip mentioned something about like charter boat captains and stuff like that. I'm not sure how that would work out. But at the end of the day, I know I've taken up too much time. There is a solution already on the horizon. The marina is the perfect place to locate commercial boat rentals, charters. So the marina that's being designed, make sure there's a section for these commercial operations. Provide business owners, like Keith, he says he has a charter, provide them with slips, provide them with parking for their customers. It would all be concentrated in this area or wherever this marina is going to be, somewhere around here. And that won't have an impact on the residents. So I think that we're having this big discussion and it's good, but ultimately the solution is going to be coming over the horizon, and it'd probably be in the most appropriate place to limit the potential impact on the surrounding community. Thank you for giving me all the bonus time.
Thank you,
I appreciate
Worsley.
you guys looking into this.
Thank you. Anyone else? Go ahead.
So, based on the public comment and the correspondence I've received, I think we should go ahead and ask the city staff and the city attorney put together something very restrictive for residential RS1 rentals of vessels, and caveat that if it's owner, captain, charter driven, that would be an exception.
Yeah, go ahead.
And
We still
and
haven't
why
really
are we
looked at the
saying
whole
that?
scope.
Why are we saying, just let me finish. Why we're saying that was, let's put that out there, you know, we're not making a decision tonight. It's gonna come back as a resolution or an ordinance. And then we get to massage it after we get other people that want to come
I
back.
have a question about the whole scope of this section 2.71. It says vehicle. It doesn't just restrict it to watercraft. So what are we talking about here? All vehicles, car rentals, like motorcycle rentals?
I want to
mean-
start with watercraft.
I mean, but we're supposed to look at this whole ordinance
Okay, well, like,
and figure out what we want to do with it. And then she's also talking about splitting it up between commercial and private. I mean, if you start talking about commercial car rentals, does that mean we're gonna start going down the road of allowing like enterprise car rentals? You know, like we gotta be careful what the scope of this whole thing is and where we're going with it. I wouldn't just concentrate on one avenue.
okay, I don't mind taking a holistic approach, but if we can get consensus on a piece at a time, and the first piece I'm asking for is consensus to have restrictions on rentals of watercraft that aren't captain or driven by the owner of the vessel that's familiar with the waterway.
I mean, if we start with that, where are we gonna stop? We're gonna start
Well, then
regulating
you can-
people's
if you
like
guys-
private car rentals, people's
if
private
you-
motorcycle
if-
rentals?
if-
I just don't think that's a good
No.
idea. I mean, I see where you're
Let
going
me
with
just
it.
say something real quick.
If we agree with that piece of it.
I don't,
Then
honestly.
we work with the
I don't
next.
either. I don't agree with
Then
it.
we can look at the next piece.
The thing is, which I know you guys don't understand this because you're not in this business, but there is a very big barrier to entry to rent your boat legally. It's very expensive to get your boat. For one, the boat, forget about it, it's 50,000 plus to get the right boat, but the insurance and then to jump through all the hoops to get what you're supposed to have, it's a huge barrier to entry. Most people aren't going to do it. If they are going to do it, they're not going to do it properly. If you say, like you got on this list, you have to have your insurance and all this, maybe have them register with the city so that you know who's doing it, and it would be better that way.
Well, a lot like the Airbnbs. That's how I see this.
Yeah.
This is exactly what Mr. Kirschenbaum turned into. It's unintended consequences of turning a commercial
It could be-
operation.
I mean, you
That's what I'm
guys-
trying to hedge.
It could be crazy like you're saying, but I mean, the reality of it, that's really blowing it way out of proportion. It's not actually, it's
But
not
look what
actually.
happened to housing. I mean, they said there's a barrier to entry to
Right.
housing. People were
But
investing in
if we start
buying.
off, we register them, we have them make sure that they've got their insurance, they can, if you want the city to do an inspection, but your guys are trying to propose something that it's not easily enforced. We don't, what is the main goal to stop people from going and enjoying their boat out there? What is the main reason?
For
me
because
or
of
renting?
what the things we already
Because
covered.
you don't want to see people driving in your backyard with a
No,
boat?
because if you had.
Because you don't want people
you
going
can
fast?
go rent. You can rent, if you go Cabin Highlands,
Mm-hmm.
$735. You can rent a 12-person pontoon boat
With no experience.
with no experience.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's a marina.
Legally,
It's
you're
a
supposed
commercial
to have a thing on
operation. They got the insurance. They can give the little people their safety drill and say, there's where the life preservers are. And, you know, we give you free gas, bring it back in one piece. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
But if you had a 12-person a pontoon boat in your backyard, and you decided you were gonna rent it to somebody,
Mm-hmm.
then you got, how many cars that are out on the street?
You would have to have a parking plan, is that correct?
Well, there isn't any parking plan for single-family residences, it's on-street parking.
I
For
believe there
Airbnb we
is.
do, so he's trying to say, make it like Airbnb.
Have a parking plan, and there, like I said, there already is a barrier to entry. Limit it to
And then,
one or two
okay, you
vessels.
rented it for 4 hours, and you got the people coming for the next 4 hours. So you had those 6 cars on the street, and now you got the other 6 cars show up. And those people haven't moved yet, because they haven't got off the boat and into the car, and the next people are trying to park and go there.
Again, if they're making a problem on the streets, that's a code enforcement thing. Then you call the code enforcement and they.
All I'm
do the
saying is,
cars.
as Becky said, you put something on the books.
Right.
Or at least we work to put something on the books. And then when it comes back as an ordinance,
We refine it
we
there.
see how much public outcry we get about it. And if we don't get any, we put it on the books. And then if somebody comes up with a case in the future that wants to modify it, we can consider it.
Go ahead, Tanja.
I was gonna say, to me, it could fall under our home occupation ordinance where it has to be incidental to the property. So if there's anything that's making it look or feel as if it's not a single-family residence, then that would be prohibited. Just by the fact that if you have 12 cars out there, that doesn't look or feel like a single-family residence.
Well, we already have that problem with Airbnbs, okay? The Airbnb says you can have 8 people, okay? Well, they rented it for one day for a birthday party. 30 cars show up. They have their big birthday party. The 30 cars are on the street, but only 8 people were on the vacation rental lease. But, you know, they had friends over. So, and that's legal.
What if you
So
have
how
a
do you
birthday
enforce
party
that?
of your own at your own house and have 30 cars?
Well, we won't talk about what happens on my street when you play
Not
on
you
the, and
personally,
a
but
couple
any
of
of
houses
us,
down the
yeah.
street.
I mean, I'm just
I
saying,
support where you're going, Skip. I just think whatever we wish we had done for the housing thing 10 years ago, we should get ahead of the curve and put some hooks in place now. I just see this being a problem. Your phone has made this all at your fingertips. You can go rent a car, golf cart, jet ski, anything. So that's
And
enabled
the
that.
other thing is, the Airbnbs that are on the canals already, you know, they don't rent their kayaks. They don't rent their stand-up paddle boards, but they let the people use, they're there and they let the people use them.
Yep.
So it's basically part of the rental of the Airbnb. So every Airbnb decided, well, we want to have a boat so the people can use the boat so we can get more money for the Airbnb. So basically they're renting a boat.
but like you said, they're not. It wouldn't apply. You're not fixing the problem. There are people renting boats in Merritt Island driving across. There are people, everyone around us is renting boats. All you're doing is saying, well, we're not going to let people offer a service that might make people think Cocoa Beach is cooler. I mean, that's the way I see it, but if you guys want, I mean, if you want to put an ordinance together that is not enforceable, it's pointless to me. It's I mean,
It's a, if you,
I think
so
it's a
much
deterrent.
about the enforcement, it's a deterrent.
okay.
I don't see that as, I see it as unenforceable too, and I mean, I don't support that, I don't think I want to go that way.
Joshua, have you been hearing any of this, or you got any comments?
Josh, do you have any comments? He was on mute, so.
Okay.
I don't at this time. It's a little tough to follow the whole conversation, so I hesitate to make too many comments just because I may get crosswise with some of the things that have been said.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
for what it's worth.
Come to the podium, please. Say your name and address.
Jake Flohana. I'm from 499 Grand Avenue, 7.
Robin, is there a question on the table, or is there a question that's specifically being addressed?
No, just in general, looking to see if you had any comments in reference to restrictions. Whether or not you want to put something before all of you to consider as a code change going forward. Is that the best way to state it? Okay.
So and again, the comments and inputs that have been put in, and where I'm missing addressing some of them, this is not to necessarily disagree with anything that's been said, so happy to talk further. But with regard to some of the conversations I've had prior to this meeting, the general gist was we need to make sure that we don't put laws, restrictions, regulations on the books that are anticipatory of a problem that doesn't exist. But in that light, some of the conversations I've had with folks is, well, we got our rules taken away from us with Airbnb because we didn't have laws on the books. However, that situation for me is a little bit different, and I appreciate what's being said there. That concern is certainly valid, but the Airbnb was already recognized to be potentially of concern, and we addressed it using our zoning laws. Now, we learned a lesson there, especially in dealing with Tallahassee and taking away home rule. But I don't think that that is a comparable situation. We don't have the indicators of a specific problem here. I have had it brought up, and I think may have been covered tonight, the wildlife water sports issue that we had. But we know that that was already illegal. They were operating illegally, and the city did shut them down. And I don't think that any laws have changed such that would make that allowable now. If a similar situation came up, that would be enforced, again, similar to how it was enforced, and hopefully a little bit more promptly, so that our residents aren't having to deal with that. But those two situations, while I think there's certainly correlations, wildlife water sports and then the Airbnb, I don't see them as directly comparable to this, in that we don't have, to my knowledge, and if something's been shared tonight that I'm missing, please, I'm not overriding your comment. We don't have a specific indicator of a problem that needs to be addressed now. And so with what I have seen to be a responsive commission, if we do get a problem, I'm very interested in addressing it and putting in language, but unless we have a specific problem and not just the anticipation of a problem, I would hesitate that we put laws, rules, restrictions on the books to get ahead of something that we imagine could become a problem. And hopefully that makes sense over the phone.
Well, Joshua, sometimes it's not imagining, it's called foresight and wisdom, but I never go to the point where after the fact I say I told you so. I just sit back and smirk. So I'll be here 3.5 more years, so.
All right, go ahead, Jake.
All right, yeah, so basically I just wanted to say, they do advertise rentals for small watercraft and stuff on Airbnb. So I feel like if you do have some kind of regulation that says, in order for you to put this on Airbnb, they need to meet these standards that you were talking about.
Yeah, they
and
have
they're
to.
licensed through the city, and the city knows that those people are allowed to do it at those particular Airbnbs. It's better to have, just for safety, someone that has gone through the boater safety course, is renting a licensed vessel that they know is not gonna end up derelict boat, right? So if you have somebody that's responsible for their Airbnb, and they don't have that particular licensing, then they're just gonna let them use their boat because they get a higher return on their Airbnb costs, right? So if I'm gonna rent an Airbnb and one's got a boat attached to it, I'm renting that one, right? That person is not held to any regulation. If you have some regulation, even though that person owns the Airbnb, this is your way to regulate whether or not they are allowed to rent that boat. So that's just my 2 cents for a safety side of things.
Yeah,
you know.
that's a good point. I mean, if we're required to register the rental boats, then we can have some kind of a fee charged for it to have somebody come out and make sure that they have their insurance every year, that they have their livery permit, that they have what they're supposed to have. That way, I mean, they can still rent the boat, but we know that they're doing it properly. Right now, it's on kind of their honor, or if they get pulled over, then you find out that they don't have the stuff that they're supposed to have.
So am I hearing that like a BTR, that there would be a requirement to have a BTR, which would show us, again, short term a little bit, they'd have to have a parking plan for their yard, that again, we could go back and reference the home occupational ordinance and somehow tie that in together. And then again, that these requirements, if a vessel is there, that these requirements have been listed on the short-term or BTR, it could be on both, and we adjust those two documents to provide maybe a passageway into being able to at least know what's been.
That way you know that they're
Considered?
doing it properly, at least, because there's a lot of people that do it, but they don't do it properly. They list their stuff, but they aren't doing it properly.
Okay, I can support that, but I don't want to limit it just to short-term vacation rentals.
No, we'd set it up as a BTR in general, if
For
you're gonna have a vessel rental, but the short term would have to have also, do you have a vessel or other type of, as per the definition, motorcycle, whatever it might be, right? You'd have to also disclose that as part of your short term. So it would change the short-term rental documentation and BTR, but it would also be a separate BTR if you just have the boat rental, right? Or just another type of vessel rental. So you may not be a short term, but you may be renting it out of your home. Have you gone through this process?
Because then we're not looking at an enforcement issue, that's something that we know that we're not gonna be able to enforce. If we do that, then we know that they are in compliance already.
Do they have to have
And
folks
if
that
they're
aren't.
not, we've got code enforcement.
Yes.
Are we gonna track it with the database like we're doing with Airbnbs? Like,
Yes.
how do we?
It would be in our database under home occupation. So everyone that has that would have a home occupation license to do it, just as if you were a physician working out of your home or someone of that nature that is able to do a home occupation. But again, those are very specifically worded to say it can't be 12 cars out there because now it doesn't look like a residential anymore. And so those are the things that we could work on, having code enforcement, having some clear guidelines as to when they can go out and enforce the code.
So in your short term, you limit to 4 vehicles. That's our short term, the most recent change you made last year. So we say no more than 4 vehicles, and we say that as a trailer. If you're bringing in a boat, that trailer counts as a vehicle. If you keep those same similar rules to this BTR, then, at least you've got your restriction on the number in which code enforcement can go out there and look at the number of vehicles. If they have to have a parking plan, as they would be required to on a BTR, you could see if they're parking as on the street, you could see if they're parking across the lawn or whatever it might be, but it would have to be part of the plan initially.
So can we, as the commission, kind of just with the city staff and the city attorney to move forward with putting something together that reflects that language?
I agree with that, but I just had one more thing. What if the boats are on a trailer? Then there's no parking, right? Is that a whole different thing?
No, if you rent your boat on a trailer and they come and hook up to it and take it to Ramp Road, okay, that would be just like
That's
renting a
different.
vehicle.
Yes.
You're renting a car or a motorcycle or whatever.
So then, so then we'll put something together that's requiring them to register and make sure that they have the appropriate insurance and the appropriate livery permit and the, whatever, the amount of life jackets and all that. Basically do a safety check, the same that the Coast Guard
Right.
would do. Basically, we just will mirror that.
You good with that, Tanja?
Absolutely.
Okay, we're good with that. We'll put that together and then present that at a future meeting, just for discussion one more time.
And
All right.
I just want to say one more thing. So, are we able, is the commission also allowing us to do, or asking us to do a rewrite of this code to clarify so that we don't have 2 different codes that's talking about the same thing, basically clarifying what is the difference between a commercial
Just-
rental or
Yeah,
a,
I mean.
Item D only is what you're referring to
Yeah.
right now.
Oh, you're saying not dealing with commercial right now?
okay.
Or you're saying dealing with commercial?
I'm saying go ahead and deal with it because
Yeah.
this is going back and forth. And I would like to have it clean, saying this is what the rules are for commercial, and then anything other than commercial would be residential or home occupation.
Okay.
And then that way we can clean up this particular code and address commercial rentals, because I think the intention here was not to have certain types of car rentals in certain areas of our city.
Right.
And I think that was when we tied it to the 50 units.
I mean, bicycles and scooters and all that stuff should be, I think it enhances the experience of Cocoa Beach, so I think we should allow them personally.
So I think what we're asking is, can we work with our city attorney and provide you a definition of what is commercial, first of all, and then once you agree to that definition of commercial, then can we either restrict it if you need to, or whatever changes you'd like to make at that point in time, but at least define commercial, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So that
Absolutely.
this would become the commercial only, and then the residential would be on.
Or another subsection would become commercial, yes.
Yeah, because now are we, like you said, people rent cars on the app, right?
Right.
Is that considered commercial, or is that private?
Well, that's what she's saying, that she
That's
doesn't
what we're gonna
necessarily
discuss.
consider that to be,
Okay.
but It's the same, yeah, I mean, I think you should be allowed to rent your car on Toro if you want. I don't think we should tell you you can't do that. So, but
It's managing it, not restricting it. It's managing it, not restricting it. I mean, I think
Managing it, exactly.
The residents don't want it to be a commercial operation where it's excessive.
be respectful to your neighbors.
Unfortunately, I have to write that down,
and
to be respectful.
We have to make a way that we can make sure that you're being respectful to your neighbors. But, yeah, okay.
So, City Attorney, are you okay?
I think I've got the ideas. I took a lot of notes.
Okay.
Obviously, she's our critical piece of helping us put all this together.
All right. Item 2.
Okay, this is new business, item 2, discussion of section 3-28 seawalls and waterside accessory structures, and section 5-15 stopping, parking, mooring, and towing. Representative Tanja McCoy, Director of Development Services, recommendation discussed.
So this is another code where we had a couple of rewrites or instances where we had two different codes, and it got kind of confusing for us in the Development Services Department in terms of which code trumps which code, if city ordinance versus the Land Development Procedures Manual, and how do we, the LDC, and then how do we regulate this particular item as well, because of the fact that we have looked at some of the canals, and originally it seems like maybe in parts of the code it says a canal should be 100 feet, but all of our canals are not 100 feet. So when we start to look at 100 feet, if you look at 20% of the canal being able to put a boat or a waterside accessory structure there, then it works out. But once you start to look at the canals the way they're actually out there, our code does not really address our canals the way that they are. So a lot of our canals may be 70 feet. So when you start to look at 20%, it starts to close in, and we don't leave open that 35-foot of navigable canal, as well as the way we're measuring it. The way the code reads right now, it says you have to start the measurement where the water starts at 3 feet if you don't have a
If there's no
seawall on the
bulkhead,
other
yeah.
side. So all of those things we looked at and felt that it would be important to have this discussion and talk about ways that we can address what's really going on in our canals and make it boater friendly, as well as utilize our canal to the best of our ability.
Did you mention the part where one of the regulations says you can only use up to a third of the width of the canal?
Yeah, that's another one. We had
That was-
3 different ones.
That was back before, and then they changed it to 20%, which doesn't make sense.
No, the third is still on the books.
Yeah, it's still on the books. The third.
The third is still on the books, so there's a conflict
Right.
between 20% and the third.
Right.
Okay? And the other thing I just mentioned is, let's say you had a 100-foot wide canal, okay? And you had, late 50s, early 60s seawalls. And to prevent turbidity from entering the canal when the old seawalls were removed, and keep landslides from, pulling out the old seawall and the whole yard falling into the canal, they allowed you to, it's on the code, it's allowable per building permits to build your seawall and get a permit for it outside of your existing seawall. So there's 2 feet, okay? Then they build that seawall, and then they pull out the old seawall, and then the dirt and everything from your yard moves into the old seawall, and then they backfill, okay?
Yes.
So now on that side of the canal, instead of 100 feet, now it's 98 feet.
Yes.
The guy on the other side of the canal does the same thing, now it's 96 feet.
Yes.
Okay, so 30 years later, somebody decides, well, I gotta take out that wood seawall and put another seawall in. They move it out 2 feet. So that's diminishing the widths of the canals. And if you read the fine print, it says per the survey, and the survey, like on, my property, shows the water line 2 feet behind where it actually is now, because I built a new seawall and I built it outside of the old seawall so they could pull out the old seawall and everything wouldn't end up turning into turbidity in the canal.
Yes.
So the problem that we have here is it's, the new code changed it to 20%. You could moor your boat 20%, which is the same exact code as our dock structures. So now when you used to be able to have a dock with a boat at the end of it and you were legal, now they've made it to where you can't legally put a canoe at the end of your dock because the code is, I don't know why it was changed, but it was changed to the same exact 20% for mooring as is the dock.
Yes, and it talks about 20% or 30 feet, and then 20% or 40 feet. So again, those two codes are kind of not, if you read them carefully, they're not in conflict, but they appear to be in conflict. And I think it's important for us to make sure that the public has a very clear understanding of what it is that our code is asking them to do.
I went through every single canal. I pulled up about 45 boats that were in violation of our changed code. If we just put it back to 33 1/3%, most of those boats would be back into code. And I cruise these canals on a weekly, daily basis. I don't have an issue getting through any of these canals. I don't see any hindrance to navigation. But if anybody owns a boat in here or has a boat behind their house that's greater than 30 feet, more than likely you are in violation of this mooring ordinance.
And this is some examples of how it really doesn't work on this canal, because this canal is 96.3 feet. And able to put the two boats out there, even though we can see clearly that they have plenty of room for navigation, the code is just not sufficient in this area. And these are some of the pictures that we have of how the code is not working with our current canal system.
So honestly,
You want the third, not the 20%?
I want the
is what you're
33,
suggesting?
I think the 33 1/3 will put everybody back into compliance. And honestly, putting or 30 feet or 40 feet, it doesn't matter. As long as there's a 33 1/3% with at least 35 feet in between, there shouldn't have to be a number attached to it. It just works. In all reality, you can't get a bigger boat than
Yeah, but if
60
you
feet.
just do the math, okay.
Yeah,
If it's a 100-foot wide canal,
yeah.
and you have 33 1/3%, so it's, 33 plus,
On either side.
a bit of a foot. And 33 and a little bit of a foot on the other side, you can't have 35 feet of clearance in the middle.
It's pretty rare to have
I know,
Two.
but I wouldn't put the 35 feet.
You would have to
past it.
grandfather the one, and the other person would have to have at least 35 feet to get through. That would be how you'd have to do it. It's just, but I'm just telling you, if it's not 33 1/3%, there's way too many people out of compliance.
Well, I'm good with the 1/3 of the width of the canal, for whatever the width of the canal is, based on the survey, the original survey or whatever. But,
Doesn't matter if
to
it's-
say that there has to be 35 feet, and then there's canals that are only
70 feet.
50 feet wide.
Well, then take that out too if you want. I mean, it's in there right now at 35 feet. That's why I just said go with it. Put it to 30 feet then.
Well, so those are nice straight canals. Tom, Mr. Broughton had a great analysis he
Yeah,
submitted
yeah,
about
yeah.
the curvature. That's a whole nother.
Right.
This would not apply to anything in a pocket. So a canal, a pocket canal, like on the
Cul-de-sac.
inside, that's gonna have to have a whole separate thing, because that's a
Yeah.
different thing.
I think those should be dealt with on an individual basis.
Yeah.
Because they are so individual in terms of how the canal is shaped at the end. I mean, it can get tricky, and I think our review process and our building code official would be, our building official would be easily able to identify when something works and when it doesn't work, when it comes in for permitting.
Can it be a variance?
What's that, Becky?
Well, we have to have regulations that are at least relatively specific. We can't say, as long as it works. We can allow variances, we could have templates of typical situations.
Yeah.
And then if it doesn't work, then somebody could get a variance.
Well, okay, so you could say a third of the width of the canal, and on these places where you're at the end of a canal, and you've got a 500-foot canal looking straight out at you, you can't go a third of the 500 feet,
Yeah.
okay? So.
Yeah, no, but the
Well, that's a
problem,
hard
What I'm
limit,
saying is
yeah.
you could say a third of the width of the canal, never to exceed X distance.
here's the problem where that comes into play. So you say you got two houses on the end of a canal, and it's a rounded canal. You got two places that are coming in like this.
They
So you
cross.
can't do a 33 and a third this way and a 30, like, the boats.
It's not a straight line.
Do you have any of those, Tanja, to show?
I don't think I took, well, I mean, there might be some pictures of that.
But I mean, it's currently written there, so there's a relative 20% and then there's an absolute 40 feet. I think that's,
The 40 feet wouldn't, 20 feet wouldn't do it.
whatever the number is, but what I'm saying is there's a relative measurement as well as an absolute measurement. That's
But we do
hard
have
cap
a
for
picture
situations
that,
like that.
let me pull that one out.
That's the 40 and the 20%.
The problem is that every
Yeah,
pocket is different. Some are wider, some are skinnier. That needs to be more of a case by case. It needs to be assessed.
Well, it is when they come to get their permit.
Right.
And then take a
Yeah, when they
Board
get
of
their
Adjustment.
permit, again, if you have some kind of reference, I still lost
But
that.
this is what I'm talking about is a general, basically a general rule of thumb for mooring, that we just need to have that just.
So you're
needs to be
proposing to
fixed.
strike right now it's 20% or 30 feet max.
Just put it to 33 and a third.
So strike
So
that
then how
altogether and
does that
replace
work
it
for those people that are in those
in the
pockets?
cul-de-sac.
That's what I'm saying. Not every property is created equal. So like those ones are gonna have to have, this is a one size fits all thing, and that's not a one size fits all.
Okay, so let's say for the people that are perpendicular to each other
Yeah.
on a canal, it's a
B2.
third. But for the people that are like in the end of that the end of that canal, it's gonna be something different?
Well,
It has
does
to
this
be.
count that it says,
So how do you say that?
that it says, no waterside accessory structure shall be permitted to infringe an equal right of access by an adjoining property owner? Does that
yes,
work for that situation?
Yeah,
yeah.
it does actually.
So as I said, I think our code already addressed that part. One of the things that did get changed is the 15 feet setbacks, which don't work on these
Right.
ends.
And we've already fixed that.
No, we have not fixed
So
that.
the 15-foot setbacks or 20%, whichever is greater, I believe. Now, this is another issue that we've got, and this comes to, say you are on the outside of a canal, like you're on the end of the street, and you have a big, let's just say like a kind of a pie-shaped property. Well, now that guy has, let's say, everybody else has 100 feet, we'll say. because it's straight. And this guy's got this rounded property. He's got 200 feet. So now he's got to go 20% away from his property line, which is 40 feet. He can only use the middle section. He can't go, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Could you fix that though with just changing that to whichever is lesser?
Whichever's less, I think, is what it
Okay,
should probably be.
Like I said, Tom had a great write-up and good analysis. I agreed with.
Yeah, I think the 15 feet on the ends of the canal setbacks just probably won't work because
Because then
even
you
if you
won't-
had 40 feet, you're never gonna get there, which is why we have had the people come in for variances. And that was one of the things.
And they've always been approved.
Yes.
So one thing back pre-2007, when I was in Waterways and Wildlife Advisory Board, I was chairman for 15 years, we made it where you could have a 3-foot wide walkway from one property line
Yeah.
to the other property line. So you could have a dock that was the width of your property, but only 3 feet out.
They changed that.
No, it's still on the books.
No,
No.
my neighbor tried to do it.
The 3 feet is
It
still on
says
the
it right
books.
here. It's set back 5 feet.
Yeah, back 5 feet.
So they put the 5 feet on
changed it.
either side.
I think we should allow it to go to the property line again. I don't
Yeah.
understand why we changed that.
2 out.
Yeah.
You're saying it needs to go all the way up to the property line. That 5 feet
Yeah.
was inserted in there to bring that back.
Yeah,
That
that,
must have been one of those ones where they had a million things. they could have and all.
Consent agenda.
that's
It
it.
was on the
That's why,
consent agenda.
that's
Got
why I
bundled
wanted to bring
under
up all this stuff. There's so much screwed up in our mooring codes that
But I
nobody knows.
agree that 3 feet should go property line, property line.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they always did.
So,
But like on my property, because of the 15 feet, anything that went out past 3 feet, I brought in, but, you know, I have a 75-foot wide lot, so I had room to do that.
Yes. And most of the people on the ends don't have that type of. cutout. They have
I understand that.
Cutout, so.
Mayor, do you want to summarize?
Yeah, so basically, I think what we need to do is we need to bring the mooring code back into 33 1/3% without numbers attached to it. And I think we need to bring our, the 15% or 20, or 20% or 15 feet, whichever's less, I think it needs to be, rather than whichever's more. And then I think the, what do we,
You're saying
the walk,
strike the
the
5
3-foot
feet.
walkway
Property line, property.
and property line to property line.
I agree with the second and third. The 1/3, I think you've got to put an absolute max on it. Because if you keep it just a relative on the wide canals, you
Doesn't
can still
matter.
got 60 feet.
It doesn't matter. If you got
I think it does.
If you got a
I think you need to
200-foot canal, what does it matter?
I don't think
go
it
at
matters
61.
Well,
because we have that,
it blocks the view.
Tandra, I put you a picture of a,
I don't think it matters because we
But-
have, as long as it doesn't obstruct the other neighbor's access, then, which is written in
Yeah,
there.
but some people believe that going out on their dock and watching the sunset through a 60-foot dock in a boat is obstructing their access.
that doesn't matter. There's no right to view. Doesn't matter if you're on a canal or on an ocean, there's no right to view.
Well, why don't you put the 33 1/3% with the maximum of 40 feet?
That's what I'm saying. I put an absolute.
Because that doesn't work.
That's what we
Just keep
already
it
have.
relative.
We already have that. It doesn't work.
That's what it says, a maximum of 40 feet.
Well, it does work.
Not for me.
Not for you. Are you the only one in the city that has that problem?
Nope, I'm not.
Who? Who else? I want names and numbers.
40 feet? I don't know. They're over there. I
And
put
we
them.
have to give them a permit anyway. If it's ridiculous, they won't give them a permit, so.
Yes.
Based on what though? I mean,
Well-
my whole point is I think we need to have an absolute number as well as a relative number. Whatever the value is, we can debate that, but I don't think just putting a relative 1/3 is gonna capture the
You
intent.
can't get a boat bigger than 60 feet in Cocoa Beach anyways. I mean,
I mean, it's in, yeah. Okay. Agree to disagree. All right, do you have it captured or summarized what the
I
recommended
would,
changes are?
I would suggest that if we're going to be doing anything which would require somebody who already has a dock and a boat to change what they're doing, that we have a grandfather provision.
I
Because
agree.
otherwise, we'll end up in court.
Okay.
I agree with that, just for the mayor.
Yeah.
So let's make it 33 1/3% of the width of the
Grandfather.
canal and no more than 40 feet.
Seems reasonable. I mean, with the now 30.
Okay?
I don't
I
wanna
don't,
make a
I don't agree
restriction.
with it.
Yeah.
I don't,
So,
You want to open this public comment, see if anyone has?
yeah, that's public comment. Anybody got public comment? Go ahead.
John Cabord, 432 South Banana River Boulevard. Was looking at doing a dock and some seawall work a while ago, and I'm glad that the commission is taking the opportunity to update the code. There are a couple of issues that specifically need to be addressed. One of them that isn't contemplated in the code is South Banana River, my canal, it was up there earlier, and the one on the other side, and some of the canals in Cocoa Beach have, within the property owner's boundaries, boat slips cut out for them. The current code doesn't address that in any way with regards to covered, you know, that you're allowed a certain amount of square footage for your dock. If you have significant navigable waterward access on your property, within your property lines, as opposed to all of the discussion which we've had earlier here, which is within the city or sovereign state lands, the square footage for, if I put a boathouse on my property, on my deeded property, okay, that shouldn't count as the covered area which I have in front of my house as well, because you're limited by number of square footage, because that's on my personal property. One of the other issue with those is in the city where you have those neighborhoods where they platted them and they cut out those areas for boats, they're on the property line directly adjacent to each other under the current setback. And if you go down South Banana, you'll see probably 40 houses and everyone has a boat lift with a roof on it. All of those are non-compliant because they're on the property line. My suggestion for something like that would be with DEP permitting in the past, you can get a setback waiver from your neighbors. When I was doing some DEP permitting stuff, they just said, yeah, this is fine, your plan is fine with us, get your neighbors to sign off on it. So you would go to the adjacent property owner and you'd say, yeah, you know, do your roof or do it in coordination. So there needs to be a good look at the setbacks. I agree with the idea that you should be able to have a walkway, 3 feet out extending. That needs to be addressed. Again, that could be done with a setback waiver, where if the adjacent property owner agrees, run it along the full length of the seawall. Last thing is that being a coastal community that's prone to flooding, the seawall regulations, the current drafting on retention doesn't make much sense, and it's pretty open-ended. It says you're supposed to retain in your backyard. If you look at a lot of the residences, almost all the existing residences, you've got a huge slope. Mine, we have a bigger backyard than mine, but most of them you've got 10 feet setback off of the canal and it drops right off. There's no way you're doing anything new and meaningfully retaining any water. There was someone on my street who recently did a bunch of work, and they had to do this, instead of having grass and a normal slope, they had to do an expensive and not as nice dock to cover the required retention, which is also bad for the actual seawall structure. The vinyl seawalls aren't made to retain a bunch of water behind them. So that should probably be addressed because it's open and it just doesn't, it doesn't really make sense. And there was one other thing that I think I forgot about seawalls. But in addition to the stuff discussed, there needs to be, it's good that we're taking a look at it, but especially with setbacks on the side, so thank you.
Yeah, so he brings up a good point. I know his property, and they were initially intended to have docks on the property line, finger piers going out. And if you look at his properties and everyone that's down there, that's the way they designed those properties, to have a finger pier in between the two properties. So that's something that maybe you also want to look at, is the original intent of that property.
Tanja, you want, any last minute?
Yes. Another thing that we are looking at when we talk about the width of the canal, how are we going to measure it? Because right now, our current code talks about going out until the water is 3 feet deep. So are we still going to use that measurement, or that's going to be a lot more difficult for staff to enforce or identify, as well as it's going to take the width of the canal down substantially? in
You're
some
talking about for
areas.
the, where there's no bulkhead is what you're talking about?
Yes, where there's no bulkhead.
I do not think that there, do you have any specific instances?
Indian Creek.
We would have that because I got a riprap seawall.
But you have, yours is deep all the way through, so it's not, like, the, where she's talking about,
But you couldn't pull from the property line? It wouldn't just be measured?
I'm trying to think
Saying you have
of,
to go out till it's 3 feet
No, I understand
deep.
that, to
And
measure
then you
from.
do the NGVD.
What I'm
depth,
saying
you
is,
know.
could we
Go
not
ahead.
just measure from the property line? On the plat?
I'd say property line.
That's the one that we thought was be the best,
Property
is to
line.
look at the property line
Whatever's
as,
on, yeah, I mean, it's,
Yeah, get rid of the 3
yeah,
feet
that's
deep.
fine.
that
Let's
would
do
be
the-
easier for us
But it's
in
gonna
terms of,
pull
we
it
have
in
a
for some
survey, we'd be able to identify it easily.
Especially the people down in the Jack Drive, Brightwaters area, you know,
you're gonna go way out to get to 3 feet.
yeah.
So,
You'd never get it.
this one just brings to mind one location
Yeah,
on
exactly.
Andros, on the corner of Andros. It goes around, it gets kind of shallow, but it's open river, so there's a channel, and also at the end of Country Club. So it gets shallow, but there would be no property line because it's open river. So that's kind of where that is intended to come into play. So I don't know if you,
Well, so if it's public property or like the country club or some of those, we can, again, work on some language that may be a little different, so we've thought through that. I don't know.
I'm just saying, because like I'm not saying Country Club itself, but Country Club Road
Area
or
over here.
Willow Green.
Okay.
So where Willow Green is, they've got property where it goes out, and it's probably 100-foot wide canal, but where then it starts to get shallow, up to about 3 feet deep, about 100 feet out past where the channel marker is.
Okay.
So that's kind of where that is coming in, that's where that was coming into play initially. And not necessarily,
Yeah, you go to 3 feet to the
On the
other
far
side,
side.
and then it's not, you know,
Right.
even though you got a mile
Oh, so you're
of
saying they're
waterway,
not,
and then, but
you're saying they're not using that measurement point for the dock side, it's for the far side?
that's how you know how wide that
Got it.
channel is. So
Got it. Okay,
it's
that
not,
makes
that really has
sense. Yeah,
nothing
yeah,
to
yeah.
do with islands
side. Got it.
and stuff like that. It's only for like river.
Is that how you guys are interpreting it? It's only for the far side where there's not another property over there?
Yes.
You're doing it on the bulkhead side?
No,
But
not on the
we're
bulkhead
measuring
side.
from the bulkhead, and then when you go to the other side,
So
there's
I-
not another bulkhead, so what are we
3 feet
using?
deep.
Not in a canal though. I'm only talking about, that would only apply either direct river or when there's an island on the other side. Not a house that doesn't have a bulkhead.
Yes, that's what we're talking about, a house that doesn't have a bulkhead.
don't measure, does everybody agree measure from the property line and
Yes.
not the 3 foot
In
depth?
a canal,
This
the
side,
property line.
On the near
Yes.
side.
But outside of a canal where it's direct river, that's where that 3 feet comes into play.
Right.
And then that's another question, so in those situations when it's outside of the canal and there's direct river, should the limitations be as strict? Because we don't, I mean, the 35 feet is,
Yeah, but you got navigable waterway, you have a navigable waterway there, so you can't obstruct the navigable waterway.
Yeah, you have to apply it the same way with the 3 feet, otherwise you won't be able to get a boat through if it sticks out too far. There has to be a limit on that.
I think that was all of them. Did you have any other questions, Lauren?
We have at least one canal where the properties actually, I think the canal appears to have been extended after the lots were platted. So you have at least one spot in the community where the property lines actually meet in the center of the canal.
Yeah.
So there have to be different provisions for that area, different provisions for the open water.
That's behind the health and fitness canal. Yeah.
And then you have, the one question I guess I would have is, are you proposing to do anything different with the width of a navigable channel?
No,
To
no,
maintain.
no.
No.
That's-
It would be
The
the
Florida
one-third.
Inland Navigational District is in charge of the width of the navigable channels.
So that's the
only one-
35 feet.
Yeah, the only one I see a problem is you do have that 150-foot canal that might have to have different provisions for that.
So maybe we just write that in again, so that we've identified the area and by coordinates and so
Right.
forth, so that it's clear.
There's maybe like two canals in all of Cocoa Beach that are about 70 feet or less.
When,
Blakey.
yeah, when I say navigable waterways, of course, we want to be able to have that potentially 35 feet down the middle of a 100-foot canal. But I'm talking about the people that are out on the outskirts of Cocoa Beach, and you have the 300 channel that runs like down by Valley and all that stuff, you know, all those through Cocoa Isles and all the way down to where you live. You know, there's a channel through there. And you wouldn't want to allow people, just because there's, you know, they can see the mangroves on the other side are 400 or 500 feet away, doesn't mean they can build out and infringe on the actual navigable marked channel.
Yes.
Okay. Good?
Yep.
No?
Clear as mud.
Okay, moving
sorry.
right along. Oh,
Go ahead, Orson.
We confused Orson.
So, Orson Charter, 178 Drive. I think the only thing to just keep in mind is with the pie-shaped lots with the, you know, they have little narrow docks. I live adjacent to one. I'm already out 30 feet. If I was to moor a, 10, 12-foot boat, then I'm out 42 feet. So I don't know what would happen in that case if the neighbor across from me would no longer be able to potentially moor a boat on their side because I've already restricted the canal, because I do have two folks have pie-shaped
Right.
lots right there. I'm only saying to consider it. I don't know if that would be the case on what you guys
That's where
discussed.
Tandra was saying that no one's allowed to infringe on the equal rights of another. So,
Okay.
So does the 1/3 of the width of the canal work for you?
oh, he lives. he's
Well,
got-
so I've already built, so I'm good. I'm thinking if the neighbor across from me also came out that distance.
Are you
The two pie-shaped lots, I would think they would have a hard time maneuvering
Are you a
into.
third?
No, he's,
No, because I'm
he's
at.
got,
Oh,
yeah.
So, I only just offer it to consider because I could see potentially that could impact the other folks in the corner being able to access their docks or enjoy their property if it was to become too narrow and restricted navigation. So, that's all. Thanks.
So the other thing, I think, as we go through this process, as we propose grandfathering in, we probably need to bring that back as a second item later, because I think we need to go through and then identify so that we've stated. Do we need to do that for the legal?
Okay, are we talking about
The docks
having
and-
when I draft these, I'm going to put in a grandfather provision. And essentially, because a lot of people don't live here full-time, I think there should be a registration time of a year, and someone will register with the city within 12 months of the adoption of the ordinance, if in fact, at the time of the adoption, they were in violation. And, I think we can tell from aerial photographs and that sort of thing, if in fact, people rush through and illegally built something, so that we wouldn't be grandfathering them in.
So
But-
you'd have a legally permitted non-conforming
Yes,
structure. which we have plenty of in Cocoa Beach
Oh,
already.
of course, and I'm just trying to avoid, I think you said there were 45 boats that were
About 45
potentially,
that
you
are
know.
out of, yeah.
I don't want the city to be sued 45 times.
Yeah, but I think that
No.
the third would, I think just going to the third would alleviate most of this problem.
It could. I don't have any idea, but I think in order to protect the city, you know, we should do that.
Okay. All right, I guess we're done with the subject of buzzer one.
I did want to say one more thing. So, in the code, it does also talk about, because I was following up what Orson said, in the code, it does talk about having flares or lights on docks that are out at a certain distance, so that if during the permitting process, we saw that there was going to be an opportunity to maybe narrow the canal down quite a bit, then that person will be required to put up some lights or reflectors or things of that nature to make sure that when somebody's navigating during the nighttime, that they would be able to see those docks and structures out there in the water.
Okay. All right. So we did. Discussion.
Beach vendor.
Beach vendors. This is going to be the fun one, right? Go ahead, Becky.
Okay. This is new business item 3, beach vendor discussion, section 15-39, certain sales and leases along the Ocean Beach Park. Representative Tanja McCoy, Director of Development Services, recommendation discuss.
Okay, so, during this presentation back up, we did a while back where we went over our current code and looked at some of the things that we found. Actually, this is our 7-year review that our code from 2017 required us to do a review at this point, and this is the point in time when we're doing that review and looking at some of the things that have worked well over the last 7+ years, and some of the things that are not really working as well for the city and for the vendors. And so throughout this process, we've done some surveys, talked to a lot of the beach vendors about their concerns, and we're looking forward to updating our code. And then in December, most of the vendors' licenses will be coming up for renewal between this year and next year, December of 2024. So during that time, we'll have a nice code in place for the vendors to get that 7-year contract back that they had previously. So looking at the changes that we have proposed, we looked at,
Put that in slideshow, please.
I'm sorry?
Can you put that in slideshow?
Oh, sure. Yeah, okay. So the first one we looked at was clarifying and updating current requirements, was section 15-39A to B, 1 through 8. And this change would allow, would change the fact that upland property owners are no longer required to give consent if the business is conducted solely on public property.
Can
So
we all
let's talk
agree on
about
that?
Well, I'd like to hear
Well,
public
one
comment on
by
that
one.
part.
Should we go through one by one with public comment?
It has another part to it. It also, and the vendor does not need to cross any private property to easily access the business location. And there is some case law that talks about if in fact you don't need to utilize the upland property owner's property or cross it in order to get to the beach, the public beach, you can't require that the upland owners consent.
That seems reasonable to me.
That's what's written here, right? It's just not
Yes.
there.
Right.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Can we give consent to that and move to the next?
Well, that seems, but I want to see, does anybody else have objection to that? Go ahead.
Objections only.
or they like it.
Please
Just
come up
please,
to
yeah.
Just to clarify on this, so let's say you do have an agreement with the upland property holder. Again, I'm Jake, Flohana, Cocoa Beach Surf School. And someone uses, let's say, neighboring side street, and technically they're using a public access, right, to perform service on a public beach, but they just walk down to where you have an agreement with an upland property holder and are paying the city to do that service there. And what can we do about that?
Okay.
So when we issue permits.
15.
Permits, okay? They tell us where they're gonna be. Now, we'll get to another subject where people move around and stuff, you know? But they wouldn't issue a permit for somebody to be on top of where you have a permit.
Well, I'm talking about like actual commercial vendors with a brick and mortar business coming out there and delivering their goods, or letting them come and do that. And that's what I'm saying. Like, technically, you're saying we don't have the ability, and it's written in here, to tell them that they can't be there, right?
The city tells them they can't be there unless they have a permit to have a beach business there.
So that, as long as we're clear on that, and who is responsible for telling those people to leave if they,
It's code
Well,
enforcement.
if you call code enforcement, I mean, I guess it's not saying, it's not giving away your right. It's just, and it's not giving them right. It's just saying that they don't have, like, if you are a beach vendor, you can go, you don't have to go through their property, then you don't need their consent. But that doesn't mean that they can just, if you're already down there and you're a vendor, it doesn't mean that the upland property can just go and put stuff on top of you.
right, no, and I think that's what I think the confusion is. The upland property owner would definitely rather us have the ability to, you know, I don't think the consent is their issue for the public to have their consent. They'd rather them not be there at all and use us.
And the city does not issue, I assume you have a permit?
Yeah,
Okay, well, the city doesn't ever issue for the same type of services overlapping geographical parts of the city.
right,
I
but
mean,
that's
of
what,
the
but I'm just
beach.
saying, if somebody uses a public beach access and walks down, right, and sets
Well,
the
then you
stuff
call
up.
code enforcement.
Yeah, if they're doing
They're not
business
legal.
on the beach and they
They're
don't
not
have a
legal.
permit to do so, then they're in violation.
Okay,
And
so,
that would be anywhere on the beach.
right, yeah, and, you know, we've been through this before, and, you know, it'll come up again. The, people out there, obviously, what, you know, how are you controlling this, right? Because we've called code enforcement over and over and over and over for somebody to come out and say something to these people, and they say, well, they're not taking money on the beach, therefore they can be here. You can't say anything, it becomes an argument, and then unless it's criminal, we can't call PD. And when we do call PD, they say, well, it's not criminal, it's a civic issue, you need to talk to your commissioners. So I'm just saying, where do you draw the line on that? Like, I know these designated areas, but I would like something that says the upland property holder or the beach vendor who has granted that access can say, hey, look, I'll call code enforcement, or
You
you're not
can.
really allowed to be
You
here.
already have
Okay, yeah,
that.
you can always call code
It's
enforcement.
just, how do you enforce something? How do you
Exactly.
prove it?
How do you
That's the
enforce it? problem,
is you don't have a problem with our code. You have a
No.
problem with how do you prove that they're doing what they're doing?
Right, exactly right. I think there's a lot of great things in this code. There really is, and it will clean up the beach. You know what I mean? But for those that are out there that are bending the rules and breaking the rules, how are you really going to enforce it?
That's my whole point with some of this other stuff we discussed tonight. How can you make a code that you can't enforce?
So that's my issue, and it's just because it's happened to me personally in our businesses, to where we have a gentleman who interferes with our surf school. He's been aggressive, put his hands on a female instructor. Nothing has been done to remove him from the beach.
Maybe
He
if
has
you-
a BTR.
Can you
right?
get a video of it? So if you see him
Yeah.
there, get a
So,
video
yeah,
and
it's
then
been
there's proof.
reported. It's been reported over and over and over
He has a BTR for what?
to do beach vendor, whatever, you know.
Not in your
But he
location.
doesn't have a beach franchisee agreement, right? But nobody, that's the thing about it. Because you get a BTR and you can vend and go out there and do it on the public beach.
It's still, then it's illegal, so code
Yeah.
enforcement. So if I can I ask Robin to come up? Robin, can you come up? Chief, do you wish, Chief, would you like to come up on any of this also, on beach?
I just kind of informed them about it before the,
I'm not sure, just one second. then. Robin, what would be your issue and how would you enforce this? Or what would you do if you were to call for this? How would you go out and enforce it from that
Right.
perspective?
I know exactly what he's talking about. It's on the north side of the pier. These people have a BTR, but they have a stone building that they work out of. They meet their people down there, and then he goes in and gives surf lessons.
Right.
He's allowed to be there. Supposedly, because I haven't seen it, there is a confrontation between them and Jake. The police have been called, the police have tried to document stuff, but they have no proof for any arrest, the way I understand it. Otherwise, he has done nothing wrong as far as code enforcement is concerned, because he does have a brick and mortar location where he goes ahead and talks to his people, collects the money from them, tells them to meet us down there, and then he goes ahead and entertains whatever it is, surf school.
Right.
And that's how it's done. Just like other businesses, and you all helped me out with it last year, where individuals are collecting money at a brick and mortar place, bringing the umbrellas and the chairs down to the beach and setting it up for them. And we said, you can't do that. You can come and get them, but they are not allowed to deliver them to you. And you, if you all remember that, that was last year.
Yes.
Okay.
yeah, and see, that's the thing, the regulation that you're putting on all of us that are doing it the right way and abiding by the code that you guys are putting out there, the people that have the brick and mortar don't have to abide by this. They only have regulation over the people that are actually have licenses with the city. So that is the flaw in this, having the public area of use without a beach franchisee agreement, when people often can think that they have that when they get a BTR. So how is that regulated? And it's tough for Robin. And we,
Right, and it can't be regulated.
It
Is
can't
it,
be, 'cause
I mean, is it feasible to say that if you're gonna have, I mean, a surf school or whatever it is, that you have to be within, at least a block away from another vendor? I mean, is that
That is
something
licensed for that area.
licensed for that area?
And that's what you already have, but it's the people that, there's no code or ordinance that stops those people from performing the service on the beach.
You've got a dozen of them. Ron Johns used to do it.
Yeah.
And they used to rent or they rent a parking spot at Shepherd Park and place a trailer there, and that's where they get their surfboards. But they do it out of their business, right behind business, Pizza Hut, and meet everybody over there. There's another place, Ohana, I believe the name of it is,
Yeah.
up around 4th Street.
Yeah.
Brick and mortar place, they meet everybody across the street. They, again, were supposed to get a permit to go ahead and park there, their trailer, but they would meet everybody over there, and they would go ahead and have their license also.
And they do.
All they have is a BTR, but if they have a brick and mortar, that's all they need, and they can meet everybody on the beach, because no money is trading hands. Yes,
So
sir.
that's what I'm saying. You can't really regulate it, so that's why I think later on, you'll get to my next point, let's not over-regulate the people that are here doing it right and trying to abide by controlling them so much as well, you know, when it really needs to be control for the people that are outside.
But on the other side of the coin, what allows him the privilege is to go ahead and set up X number of chairs and umbrellas, wait until somebody comes down there, then he can just walk them to it, take the money, and allow them to do it. That is what the exception is. That's why we have this beach rental business. So there's a big exception right there. He waits, these people come down to him, he collects the money from them, and he sits them and sets everything up.
Right. I also pay for it, have all the insurances, and abide by all of your codes.
Well,
Where
they do
these-
too, because they have a BTR.
Because they have a brick and mortar too, so. on the
But
brick
they
and
don't
mortar.
have a beach, they're not paying beach franchisee agreement fees.
Again, we just, I think that's a piece that we definitely need to look into, but again, we'd have to look to see what the requirements on the brick and mortar,
I
right?
don't
Yeah,
think that,
it would
but I don't
be-
think that goes with what you're talking about.
Right.
I think you're talking about.
No, it has nothing to do
But
with
it's
that.
the exception to that we
Right.
need to look at.
And
That's
we
what
have,
we're-
we have that coming up in the discussion as well. But yes, they have a brick and mortar, they're allowed to come down to the beach and do lessons. We talked about that in the code. They can't put up a sign, they can't transact any money on the beach, but they are allowed to come there and provide the lessons for water activities.
I mean,
And they do pay the property taxes
The
on the
beach,
brick and mortar, and we cannot stop.
the beach is
something-
everyone's.
Something
Right.
like a brick and mortar that gives surf lessons, we can't stop that. We can't stop them from using the ocean.
Yeah.
Because-
Beach is everyone's.
Yeah,
Right.
just,
And
yeah.
that's fine, and I agree with that. I'm just saying, I do that same thing.
what's he doing what's the conflict, if I can ask?
So he's yelled at a bunch of the kids during our surf summer camp, cursed at them, he put his hands on one of our physical.
But I mean, I
female.
guess what leads up to that? Why does that?
He's just a nuisance in the water.
What's your Flohana?
Yeah, and Cocoa Beach Surf School at the pier.
So your surf instruction,
Yeah,
and the other guy is too?
yeah, according to him, but he sets up his tent on the north side, and,
So he's setting up, he is setting up a tent.
yeah, I've got pictures multiple times, I've sent it to everybody. He's got a case, he's literally also trespassed from the pier,
Yeah, they can.
so,
Yeah.
I don't know, but that's the thing, I just wish there was some way for us to regulate this, and I think a lot of this is gonna control it. Like, I can tell you, he's not gonna pass some of these new requirements with the felony and the crimes involving children and stuff. I doubt he's going to pass those. But if it's not regulated, or if nothing can be done about it, because he's just, who do you want? I know the beach is everybody's, but who do you want teaching your kids, right?
Of course.
If there's no regulation there.
That's the whole point, I think, of registration, is to make sure that we can regulate and double check that these people are legitimate,
Right.
safe people to be doing business in our
Right.
city, so.
We're not regulating the brick and mortar to that extent because we're not doing background checks on a brick and mortar. I mean, I think a parent would have to check if they're gonna have someone doing those type of lessons with their kids, they probably.
What if we had something to where, if it was beach related, that you would have a background check? I mean, the difference between, it's kind of, a beach related thing is different, in my opinion, because you got kids in bikinis and so I would say almost anything that's beach related, maybe make sure that they do have that kind of a background check, just because there's a lot more temptation for weirdos at the beach. I mean, just an idea.
So you mean like
I wouldn't think that
lesson-
would be the problem. I would think that the potential for them to get caught in a rip current and drown would be a bigger problem.
That's another, so the
But why
BTRs
don't
are
we,
not regulated like
I
we
think
are.
we need to go to the next slide. Did everybody agree with this first?
I agree with
change?
that, yes.
Well, no, except for him.
Oh,
All right, Connie wanted to say something. Let's take them one at a time. We kind of parlayed into the next one.
I just wanted to reiterate a little bit about what he said. At one time, we had a brick and mortar come with setting up just directly right in front of my bar, where, again, I'm going to say, I bought that property for the view, for my deck, for my customers to look out there. And they were allowed to set up a awning type, not a tent, but an awning going across, blocking the view, and having all of these, people, kids, and everything else coming down there for surf lessons. It's not the location for it. It's a bar, and we've got all of these guys sitting out here drinking, doing stuff and everything, and these kids are down here. Not only, is it just not conducive to that type of a thing in front of probably Coconuts or Beach Shack, or to have somebody coming down there wanting to do yoga classes and bending over in front of everybody that's sitting out there. I mean, it's got to be regulated a little bit, I would say, by the property owner. I don't have a problem very much about, ever having somebody else come and want to do business there, because it's family owned and family will be there operating and everything. But, I just think that those type of businesses, when they're set up in a location along the beach that does not have an uplander there, with a hotel that have their tourists or whatever's going on, maybe they don't want to have, other businesses right in front of their upland business area. So that's my only thing. Plus, I would like to know who is doing business right in front of my property. I don't want just somebody's name that's on a list with the city that's coming up next, to be given that opportunity without me knowing who it is. I really don't. I'm local. That's just all there is to it, That's all I have to say.
So, thank you. City Attorney, could Connie, as the owner of the Beach Shack property, does she have riparian rights out to a certain point in the beach?
Just the mean,
Y'all-
the mean high tide line.
She has certain riparian rights, but she doesn't have the right to control the beach in front of her. And I just had to
Could
think
we-
for a
could
second
we-
because
could we
it's,
say that the upland property owner riparian rights would force the public property beach vendor to be on the seaward side of the riparian rights line?
no, because are we talking about the mean high water line? I mean, we're talking about wet
You said
sand at that point.
Didn't you deal with a bunch of
And
stuff
there-
on the west coast with riparian rights lines?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and I did here too, because if you remember, y'all passed the ordinance, remember when we had all the historical information? And y'all voted, and I believe it was unanimous, to allow the free access to people on the beach, even when the property went out to the mean high water mark. And I don't know where her mean high water mark is, or I don't know where her property line is. There aren't very many properties, as I recall, in Cocoa Beach that actually have that.
Have that deeded in
But,
as riparian rights.
but,
I can tell you, I used to go to Beach Shack and before they filled the beaches in, and you could stand under that deck, and the mean high tide line was under that deck.
I kind of remember something when, years back when we were looking at the beach agreements, and I don't know if I'm remembering it right, but there was like land on the beach plotted out for people who had, for businesses who had the beach agreements, that this was their area in the beach. That they
We
had.
still have
And
that.
that's still a thing, okay. So would that be something that, like, somebody like Connie would have control over in the situation she's talking about?
Yes, that's pretty much what's going on now. We have the areas where it is plotted out and it's identified, that's what.
if it's on their property, is that what you're talking about?
Well, I
Like
think
actual
she's
plotted out by the
talking
beach, their individual
Maps.
beach agreement. I remember it was like,
Oh, yeah, because they're the ones who had the agreement.
yeah, and so I think that's still
So
in
if
play,
they
right?
still, yeah, if they have the agreement, obviously they have control over it.
So she would, whatever her land plotted out by her beach agreement was in front of her business, right? She
Oh, yeah.
could- Okay,
Well,
so
because it's
that's.
her, she controls it.
Okay, but what she's saying is, if
So-
she gave up.
and that-
didn't
Oh,
wanna
if she
pay-
gave,
If she didn't want to pay for her,
oh, on the brick and mortar.
if she didn't want
Okay.
to pay for her beach rental business anymore, she wanted to get out of the beach rental business, where she's got plotted out in her beach rental business right in front of her property. So she has that right for that property as her beach rental business. If she quit doing the beach rental thing, she's saying because of this, somebody else could come right down
That is true.
Minuteman and set up and
Yes.
do beach rental right in front of her.
Yes, but as far as brick and mortar people coming in, you know,
It's set
down
up in her
Minuteman.
area, right?
Yeah, they can't go in your area.
That's his scenario.
Only if she had,
They
as long as she
they can't
maintains her
legally
beach
go.
room.
So you could
In
call
there.
code enforcement.
Oh, we need
and-
another lawyer.
And, okay.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I misunderstood what y'all were talking about.
Let's hear from the lawyer here.
Jack Kirschenbaum, I know a little bit about beach renourishment and ownership issues. There's something called the customary use doctrine. It allows the public to use privately owned property if it has historically. And so this is a
And we
really-
passed that ordinance.
And you passed that ordinance. This is a really, really complicated question. First, you have to determine what the upland owner owns. Either if it's a platted lot, there would be a specific property line according to the plat. If it was mean high tide in their deed, they may own to a different point. Then the customary use doctrine on top of that allows public use of private property for those customary historic uses. And I think you had to pass that ordinance to
You did.
receive the benefits of the beach renourishment projects. And so you have multiple layers of analysis, and it doesn't turn on the use of the property as a business, it turns on the use of the property. For example, if I chose to have a free surf school and put up my tent in front of Connie's, that doesn't matter that I'm charging somewhere else to do it. It's the customary use that your lawyer's gonna have to look at when she's drafting this ordinance. But it's a horribly complicated area of the law, and there's a recent case down in Vero Beach that the judge just tried. I can get you that ruling
Okay.
about these issues. It just went to trial like 10 days
Yeah, and a
ago.
lot of cities did not pass the customary use. A lot of cities that I happen to represent did not pass it. And
They got
as
no
a
beach in
result,
Vero Beach.
people are blocking off the beach.
High
Very
tide, no
sad.
beach, Vero Beach.
So I think what, to clarify for the upland property owners, we still only have the limited locations. So we have the 15 locations. You can do 3 different type of activities in any of those 15 locations. And when we're talking about a brick and mortar, they wouldn't have one of those locations at all. So when they do come down there, they're acting, I don't know, I guess that goes back to the attorney, but I'm thinking they're acting as a member of the general public if they're coming down there to give a surf lesson?
Yeah, they are, and I believe we put in the existing ordinance that if you do have a brick and mortar location in the city, you know, you can, you know, obviously if you've got a brick and mortar surf school, you need access to the beach. But we did restrict it so that you couldn't go in one of the 15 locations,
Yes,
so that there wouldn't be a conflict.
yes. Because
Oh, yes.
I have a question. So there's 15 locations and we're saying there's 3 different activities able to be in those 15 locations? So, like we have 50 foot of beach where we can put our umbrella setups and all that. So the city can say, all right, now we can do yoga in this same 50 foot because that's the location. And you can also do food and beverage all in the same 50 foot of beach.
But you have to be permitted for each one.
Right, but it's 15 locations and the city can say that
No, that would be.
those 3
one
different
loca-
activities.
No, that would be
can
one
go in those
location with
15
3
locations.
activities. That would be one location with 3 activities.
Yeah, one location is 50 foot of beach. 3 activities is beach rentals, yoga, and surf lessons,
If
and
that's
food and
how-
beverage.
If
That's
that's
3
how you
different.
chose to apply for your permit, you could do that.
But that's crowding the,
You're saying
The
one
beach.
One use per
permitter
permit.
is allowed to do those 3 things?
Right.
One permitter, not 3 different
But
permitters?
they have to stipulate that when they get the permit.
right, but,
3 different permits.
But we have,
Right.
But it's still one,
We do have.
But
one.
if the upland owner don't have to give permission, then the city can say someone else can come in that also location because we are we are not doing food and beverage or yoga or surf. So then they could be permitted also to be in the same location of beach?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
It does.
It does.
If I may, you need a different location for each one of those events that you want to do. If you want just the chairs and umbrellas, that's one section.
That's not.
For beverage, that's a separate section. Yeah, Connie has that as a matter of fact. Coconuts has that as, there's two separate locations. And each one is a separate amount of money.
But we do have the right to issue 3 different
In that same.
permits in
Not in the
a
same
section.
square. It's each
No,
one
in the
is a separate
same,
In the same square.
square.
In the
It's not in
same
the same
square,
square,
it's
right?
still only one of the 15.
But it's only one in each square. You
You
can
get
only have
45
chairs in one square.
You
But
could,
have
but I think we only
other
have
square.
16, don't
No,
we?
those,
Yeah, 15.
15.
So, no,
Coconuts is paying extra money right now for that, so is Beach Shack.
so Tanya, so my understanding, that's the next section, 1539, limit to 3 types, right?
Yes.
So one square can have 3 types.
No, one location can have 3 types.
I'm sorry, one
So these
location.
are-
You were calling it square, that went that square, one
Each have three
location.
se-
Yes.
Each one is a separate square inside that site.
Location,
Yes.
yes.
Location, okay.
Location.
But only with the same permitter though, right?
No.
No,
Let me make this clear. You could have 45 vendors in 15 locations. 15 by 3.
if that's what,
If
Yes.
the city wants to do that, you could.
How do you fit yoga and beach towels and surfboards all in one location?
You could be like Coconuts and have food,
Yeah.
and then have chairs, and then have surf lessons,
I
and it
think,
would all fit.
I think it would have to be all the same vendor if that was gonna be the case. Like, did,
Well, we-
There could be a turf war, who shows up?
yeah, I say allow it all, but it has to all be the same vendor, but, yeah, go ahead. Underground runner,
Yeah, but they get some contract.
state your name and address.
I'm Angela Cobb, 207 Rose Drive. I've been doing beach rentals for 16 years. I currently do the ones in front of Coconuts. And I know a little bit about this just because a few years ago, Coconuts did not have the authority to say who was in front of them doing beach rentals. I actually worked for somebody else. But they did have a right to say, so they have a square at the top of the beach that goes before the trash cans, and then they have a square at the bottom of the beach, which is 50 foot with umbrellas. We're allowed to take drinks to the top square, but I'm not allowed to walk drinks down to the umbrellas by the water. So the food and beverage is a whole separate square, different from the umbrellas.
she said, it's a different location.
Right. And then with the upland thing, I mean, if you take away the uplander's approval, where are those people gonna store their umbrellas and stuff? Because a few years ago, I did not work for Coconuts, but I was in front of Coconuts. Coconuts did not allow me to have a shed because we were enemies, sort of. So I had to truck everything in. So if you take the away from Miss Connie, she says, oh, well, I'm not gonna let those people store their equipment up here then. So now you're gonna have all these people running umbrellas and chairs through the parking lot and stuff and have trucks and vehicles down there again and chaos. Like, I prefer to have the uplander's approval, even though without it, I could have my own license. The city could say, okay, we'll just give it to Angela. I actually prefer to have Coconut's approval and the city's approval because that gives 2 separate people a say of who is there on the beach. So just some guy from Michigan can't come in and talk some great stuff to the city and get in front of Coconuts. There needs to be like a board of people to approve who is doing beach rentals, in my opinion, on the beach. And I think if you take away like Coconut's approval and then say, then you guys can just decide who goes there, and then it creates wars between the restaurants and the people that are working down there, and you have shed problems and alcohol problems and people that you don't even know doing yoga and poles coming out in the sand and stuff. Like, I don't want that down there anymore because it used to be down there. And I feel like it's a lot more organized now that Coconuts has the authority of who is there. So I think by taking that away, you're just backtracking what we did a few years ago. That's, I think you should keep the Uplanders approval.
Okay,
Yeah.
so why were we taking out the Uplanders approval?
Okay, there is case law that was pointed out by the attorney for one of the beach businesses who is here. I don't think the attorney is here. I didn't see him. And there is case law that indicates that a city cannot require the upland owners' approval in order to have a beach business.
Okay,
front of the
okay,
sign.
so thanks for clarifying that. So this whole argument has been all this time when we know we have to do this. So if the upland property owner wants to control who's doing business on the beach in front of their upland property, then they need to have a beach rental agreement
Absolutely.
and maintain it for perpetuity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody got that?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what we got right
All right,
now,
next,
right?
next subject.
Yeah.
There's case law that supports doing number
Yeah,
one.
we have to do
We
this.
have to do number one.
There's case law
All
that
right.
settles it.
Boy, why didn't you say that before we went
I
down?
thought I
this?
did.
You did.
I thought I did.
Roll it, number
I have a
two.
question, and I know this is gonna throw a little bit into that, but if we're saying that there's 3 different types, do that upland property owner have to purchase all 3 types?
That's what it says in your, that's what it says
I
right
think
there.
that, I think if there's 3 different types, I think it has to be held by one owner, and if otherwise they don't want to hold all 3, then it's restricted to whatever they have.
Can we restrict it to one
Yeah, we
owner?
can.
we do
Sure.
that?
Yes.
I think
Let's
it's
restrict it to
probably-
one owner.
Yeah, I think
That
that
way,
makes sense.
that
That's
way
6B.
they're
That's
responsible for
6B.
background checks for whoever's doing these other businesses. and
6B.
Do we have
other
any in
things.
that situation that we'll have to look at? Where there's multiple? Where there's more than one, let me say it that way.
I would say mostly by the pier. We
Okay.
probably have some,
Well, we can do that and then grandfather.
Well, I think we need to go look at that situation and then come back.
All
Yeah,
right.
that's a
Well,
different
this isn't-
situation.
This is a workshop. We're not making any decisions here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
so this is the, section 15-39C, 1 through 16, and the major changes here was 4 changes, and that was limiting the agreements to 3 different types. The types again would be large rentals, so chairs, umbrellas, surfboards, maybe a cabana. Then food and beverages and physical instruction. So when someone has the license for any 3 of these types, they will be allowed to put up a sign, conduct business on the beach. Whereas the upland, the people who have a brick and mortar are not allowed to do that.
All right,
Yeah.
I agree with that.
That sounds fair.
Public
Yep.
comment? Next.
I like it, as long as we're not just held to chairs, umbrellas, and surfboards. I mean, what if somebody wants
Or
a
something.
cabana or a canopy or?
What about a
Or-
boogie?
or anything at the
What about a
such.
boogie board?
Well, we still have other regulations that we'd have to make sure the size. Again, you can't put up 60 foot. We
What
know that
about-
that was a discussion last year or months ago, whenever that was. So we still have other restrictions. I think we need
What about
to,
an inner tube?
if there's going to be other items, I think we just need to have input to Development Services Director, and we need to include it so that everyone's working off the same page and nobody brings out something that the rest of you don't know about. I mean,
Yeah.
it needs to be fair and equitable and brought to you that way.
And as you see, I have it as large equipment, so it's not limited. It's, you know, when you bring something in and say this is what it is and it's a piece of large equipment, it should fit into that category. We're looking at things that people can't normally just bring down to the beach themselves, like, you know, a cooler or something.
Again, equitable, so
that
if you
would
know
be
something, send it
more
to
of an
Tanya.
IE, for example, chairs, umbrellas, and surfboards.
Yes.
You okay with that?
Yes.
Okay, next.
Put that on the application.
Yes, back to her, yes.
8, section 8 talks about new record-keeping process, approving employees, which will all, offices to access an accurate list, allow the officers for the city of Cocoa Beach to access a list of approved employees. Anyone on the list will be asked, who's not on the list will be asked to leave. So, for example, currently we've had this badge program where people lose their badges. People come in for a badge and they work for a week and then they're gone. So the city is just creating badges all the time. And so we thought having a list would be more efficient with our current new software program. We can keep that list in the computer. The officer can go out there on his phone and look at the list and see if your name's on there. You have to show him your driver's license or state-issued ID. If your name's not on the list, then he can ask you to leave the beach until your your beach vendor gets your name on that list. And so it would be the responsibility of all of the beach vendors to keep that list updated with their employees' names. And they will have access to go into the software program and just upload a new list as frequently as they need to.
Right, but the brick and mortars are not held to that?
Again, I think that's what we heard earlier, that we need to establish a beach rental agreement which would hold them for fingerprinting or background checks.
All the same
Something
stuff
we'd
we
have to
have.
do, some of that. We just have to work out those. We don't have those rules right now, but it would have to be something we'd have to look into for sure and spend some time on. We just don't have it now, so I just want to say that.
I mean, the
Again,
intent,
we
the
don't have
intent
it
of
now,
that
but-
is to keep kids and women and people
Safe.
safe. So
Safe.
I think it just makes sense to, if they're gonna be on the beach, there's more
I don't know what
temptation,
legal
let's keep
issues
them
we would
safe.
have, but,
Yeah, I'm not sure.
yeah.
Okay.
I think someone had a question.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, so to get on the list, you still have to send in the background check to the city to get the approval to put them on the list?
Yes.
Okay.
That doesn't change.
Yes, again, that can be uploaded through our portal as well, their background check information, so that everything is in one file. It's easy for the police officer to pull that file up and see what's going on with the beach vendors.
So one gov, so secure.
Look at this, we're moving forward.
Tanji, I'm sorry, let me go back real quick. So, and this will be quick, this won't be a skip story time. So between 3 and 8 is the section that talks about independent leasing. We agree that we want to strike that. That's the ability to, one location to sublease 3 licenses.
Yeah, I think that Joan.
In this
consensus
ordinance,
was
yeah,
she
between
wanted
bullet
it to
3
just
and
be
number
one
8.
vendor.
One vendor could have all 3, yeah.
Okay, so it wasn't on your cover sheet, Tanja, but it's
But
section
Becky
6B.
got it.
Got
We
it.
got it.
I got it written down.
She's like an elephant, she never forgets.
Yes.
Don't say that.
And the portal is a secure
So far.
portal, so when you upload that data, it's going to one solution, one gov?
Yes.
Whichever one.
OpenGov.
So the portal's secure, once it comes into us, you're not pulling it back, you'd have to re-upload it. So it's a secure site for any data put in there.
Yes. And we're able to restrict who has the ability to look at that as well as, private information would not be open to the general public.
Plus you're like,
Section 15-39C, 1 through 16, clarifying again, 9 talks about removing the FDEP requirement and limits the size and location of storage containers. All containers are to be located upland off the public ocean beach and sea dune area. So I'm gonna start with the FDEP requirement and then we can open it up. I looked at what the FDEP requirements were and pretty much they do not wanna regulate our sheds. They don't wanna touch that, that's too small for them, so that would be something, that's the reason why I'm asking to remove that from the ordinance code.
and so when we say we're removing the FDEP requirement, that we impose that, not the actual FDEP.
Yes,
So let's reword that to say,
City
well,
imposed.
anyway, what the intent is to remove the requirement.
yeah, because it's in our
But
code right now.
What we're really saying is delete our faux pas
Yeah.
that pointed to a FDEP requirement that never existed.
Yes.
Align our ordinance with FDBEP.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
And then, the second part, I think we're gonna have a lot of public comment on, so that's that all sheds be upland off the public ocean beach and sea dune area, which we do have code currently that states that that is what is required.
Public comment?
Yeah, public comment, I think that just doesn't sound, it doesn't sound practical, in my opinion.
Keith, you said it right. You know, when we met back here 7 years, my name is Marcus Horschel. I'm with Island Watercraft Rentals. I've been doing it 28 years. I know I don't show it, but when we came in, we just had 7 years ago, we agreed to be able to have a 10 by 10 shed, you know, per the locations. We had your guys, your city people come out, give us surveyed the sites where our shed would be. They took pictures that shows that, you know, everything's got hurricane straps on it. It had to be cosmetically kind of blended in with the beach, you know, sand color. They didn't want bright purple or anything. It was kind of agreeance. We sat at a round table, so we came to agreeance.
Where's your location?
What is it?
Where's your location at?
I have two locations. I'm on behind the La Quinta
Okay.
at the Cocoa Beach Pier on the north side, and I also have Lori Wilson Park.
Okay.
So, and what we were talking about earlier, we have to go through background checks to not only, I don't know if you guys use AUE staffing or if you just do the standard sheriff background checking, but.
I got a question.
Yes.
Are we allowed, is there,
Lori Wilson?
Two locations.
two locations to one business?
We've already had it.
Yeah, and if back in the day, if you did your own homework, if you opened one Chick-fil-A, you can have two Chick-fil-A. That's the.
So they're like grandfathered in?
Yeah, it's kind of a
Exception to what's been.
If we would have said you could have 15 locations, you can have 15 locations total in the city, and at the start of this, and only one person said, I'll take all 15 locations, and there wasn't any competition, we would have gave that one person all 15.
Yeah. But I also went to the county and got a lease through them.
And that was up to the property holder.
Correct.
So they can control who's on the beach.
Lori
And not
Wilson
the
again.
Person that they are feuding with, or somebody did something dumb, still have to deal with that person out there on their beach. The property holder have the ability, and it's still in here, I believe, to make the selection of the person who's operating their beach vendor license in front of their own property.
That was back then.
Still in there.
But we just
But
determined that
we're talking
legally
about
we
changing
can't,
it.
Changing it.
Yeah.
we can't do it.
Yeah.
We're putting ourselves into litigation if we leave it.
So back in the day, what we did with containers on the beach, they were trailers.
Correct. And I have no problem with that.
They had wheels and tires.
Yeah.
They're still
They
ugly.
probably weren't roadworthy, but
After that
we
point.
said they had to have wheels and tires in case Matthew would have come closer. They could hook up to him and drag him off the beach, and I think Adrian had to drag some of hers off the beach. And I think she needed one of those monster trucks to do it because, you know, the thing was kind of
And Robin regulated it well for years.
buried.
Yeah. I mean, he came by when we had the
But you
hurricane.
can't move the one that you've
We
got.
can. Yes, we can.
Is it on
We
wheels?
lifted them off. We took them off through Fisher Park.
With a forklift?
Yes. Yep, that's exactly it.
Okay.
And it was just like you said, it's an emergency
It's an
situation.
off-road
He
forklift.
gave us,
You can get it
24
off.
hours to remove the sheds off the beach. It
Okay.
was easier, honestly, now, the way we paid for it to get it. It's probably easier, I could have cut it down in 4 pieces, took it off, and then bolted it all together. But, you know, it happened to work out, you know, that we got a forklift down there and pulled it. Because even if you took a tow truck, a flatbed tow truck, it would have to be 4x4. So I just got to that point where hurricane coming, everybody's helping each other. And then we all had other beach vendors say, hey, I can't move this shed, I'm older. We'd go down there and help them out, so.
So the goal is still to be able to get the stuff off the beach in the hurricane.
Yeah.
If I may interject, the reason we had given them permission to go ahead and build these sheds was that so nothing would be on the outside. Once we gave them permission to go ahead and do this, for the first couple of weeks, everything was in the shed. I went down there approximately a month ago, took pictures of everything down there. This is what they all look like. They have stuff inside the shed, and they have everything on the outside of the shed. So it defeated the purpose. So that's why I think we're trying to get rid of the sheds at this time.
Yeah, well, it's easy unless you're carrying 50 to 100 umbrellas and there's a storm roaring in at 1 o'clock and people are running for their lives, you need a shed to get that in for safety. It's easier for me to drive around in a 4x4 buggy and say, hey, you guys can get this stuff off. But when you're really running and trying to get 50 umbrellas in, stacking chairs up, lightning striking everywhere, you're not going to be able to take that over the walkway, down, excuse me, find a room. It's not going to happen. I mean, come on. It's just not going to happen. You know?
And
People are going to get hurt.
The other issue, though, is in all these documents, it says that you're only allowed to have so many setups completely for the whole day. There are anywhere from 15 some locations up to 70 other locations. If you really count a lot of these, they're well over 100 chairs. How can that be if you're only allowed 15 or 70 setups for the whole day?
You have 70 setups and you have 2 chairs at one setup? I mean.
I'm just saying, there are 2 setups, 2 chairs and an umbrella. But that's the reason why we had the sheds, was to keep everything off the beach. They defeated the purpose, because then they started to get more and more equipment out there, and they stacked it all around the shed.
That's bringing more tourists to your town, that put more money in your meters, that go to more of our restaurants, because they know they can stay 5-6 hours at the beach, put more money in your meters. You see what I'm saying? It's a circle of life that
I
we
mean, I
said,
could
trying to make
care
Cocoa
less
Beach.
about that, but
Yeah.
I will say to your point.
That's
well-
not my.
Well, I know, but so you're obviously not gonna fit all those chairs in the shed. In my opinion.
Exactly.
A shed is really only for all your smaller items like your
Boards,
umbrellas, your
boogie boards.
boards, your, all this stuff that's, you can easily lock all those chairs up together.
Yeah.
And they don't look, in my opinion, they don't look trashy.
No, we do 5 stacks, run a cable, nice and neat. I mean, we
As long as-
can,
I say as long as all the chairs are uniform and they all match, it looks neat.
correct.
What's the big deal? And use the shed for your umbrellas and all your other stuff.
That is my.
And that's what, most of, I'd say 90-something% of the beach rentals that have been doing it for 7 to 20-something years.
You're not
We're all on
gonna
the
fit all
same
those
page.
chairs in that shed. It's not gonna happen.
Yeah,
Right, you can't even fit a 9-foot surfboard in an 8x10 shed.
yeah.
Like, yeah, I mean, there is verbiage in here that says that you guys are looking at maybe going up to,
1,600. 1,600.
so 1,600, which would be a 10 by 20.
Actually, if you're gonna talk, we need you up there, but,
I'm sorry.
yeah, let me hear what you have to say.
Hi, Julie Stein, 520 South Brevard Avenue, and I've had the Hilton Beach Rentals for 15 years. And it is logistically almost impossible to even conceive that you would want storage off the beach, like
Doesn't
in the
make
Hilton
sense.
parking lot. Because, again, like what Mark has said, if there's a storm or anything needs to be moved quickly, I would have to walk through the deck where there are, hundreds of people on the deck, and it's just not feasible. It's,
I
there's no
agree,
way I could
it
do
doesn't make
that.
sense. Guys, it doesn't make sense.
So,
Do we need to make the sheds bigger to fit everything inside?
I do want to say that if we decide to leave the sheds down there, there is some ordinance with the county and with the FEMA requirements in terms of having construction on easterly of the coastal construction line. And so when we're in the process of trying to create a permitting process to allow these sheds down there, that can get kind of tricky, because now we're permitting something easterly of the coastal construction line that really would not meet the requirements for a shed or an accessory structure.
Which is why we had trailers before, because they weren't considered a facility structure.
Well, what
and
about
they
a
were
pod?
Temporary.
You can use a pod, it's the same thing as a shed. I mean,
But you start strapping things down with hurricane straps, now it's a structure.
That was the
They are coming
genesis.
in and requesting building permits, and so that's tricky for us
Here comes Adrian.
in the permitting
I
section.
mean, I feel like we're, at this point, a shed, a pod,
But I mean,
we're just making it more difficult
I think-
by labeling things different. A shed and a pod and a trailer, they're all the same.
Yeah, but if the other government agencies don't allow structures, which a shed would be considered a structure, compared to a trailer that's not by definition, a structure.
So then it has to either be a pod or a trailer then.
Mobile structure.
Well, you've seen that too.
And I think the other thing that's come
I
up
think that looks like
is
crap
how does
compared
it
to a
look
shed.
on the beach? That's another big issue is how does it look on the beach? A lot of the people that live here think that this does not look good on the beach, as well as the other shed. They're not really kept up well and
Even though
maintained.
that doesn't look as nice, it just has more of a beach vibe to me. I mean,
It doesn't look well maintained. It definitely looks like if we were doing a permit on it right now, it would be required to be removed because it's not structurally sound.
right.
For my own defense, that's my shed. I've been trying to get that shed replaced for over a year or more.
I'm not trying hard enough.
So you haven't let me remove it or replace it at this time. I mean, you can ask anybody, I've tried, trust me, I don't want it to look like that. But, so you guys gotta give me the permit.
Because our codes are making it not better.
That's my trailer of the three I have, Adrian Dillon, 125 Hernando Lane, Cocoa Beach. That's the worst of my three. I have no expectation of a renewal in 2 months. Why would I go out and spend $20,000 to replace that at this point? If I get a renewal for 7 years, that'll be the first thing that goes. You'll get a brand-new trailer. So the city has got to work with what's actually happening as far as your constraints on time and not point a finger at us and saying, oh, that doesn't look good. You know, it's unreasonable to expect us to reinvest in our businesses when we have no future security that we're going to be there. You know, I've had to go through this process every 3 to 5 years to tell you, please let me stay longer. You know, it's all in your hands. I have no control whatsoever. And by the way, the format got a little iffy. So with your permission, Mayor, I'll give this to Lori and
Yes.
she can pass it out. I promise it's the last piece of paper you'll leave from me.
Adrian, I wanted to say one thing, is I've known that we've had storms and we've told you to get your trailers off the beach and you've got to go put air in the tires and probably get the brakes to break loose by dragging the heck out of
They don't
it.
have brakes in them anymore.
Okay.
Because I only pull these to my property, which is like
But-
600 feet from the beach.
I mean,
right?
you get them, when we tell you, get it off the beach, you get it off the beach.
Yes, every
So,
single time you
Any of
require
these
that.
other semi-permanent sheds and stuff, there isn't a way to go get a four-wheel drive truck and hook up to them and get them off the beach in 24 hours or less.
I use my Ford F-150. It's just a regular four-wheel drive truck to pull those
Right,
trailers
I
off the beach.
understand.
And
But
every other location could do the same thing.
I know, but what I'm saying is that these sheds and stuff, even what you were talking about pods, the pod delivery guys,
They're not going out.
they're not gonna come out there when they've got other things to do to prep for her.
No, you'd have to have them on a sled that could be pulled, like they do the lifeguard
And-
stands.
And I'll tell
What are you
you,
gonna take them to that's gonna get them out of the hurricane zone?
in years past, my parents actually asked the city to be able to put sheds on the beach, and the city would not allow it. I don't know what's changed, but the attorney for the city said, do not ever do that. It gives a person vested rights. Now, maybe that's not what's going to happen
Well, it
today.
sounds like
But
there's-
back in the 60s, that was the answer.
Sounds like there's other government regulations that disallow building structures on the seaward side of the coastal construction line anyway.
And if you'll let me, I just want to read this into the record, and I'll go ahead and do that now. Thank you, staff and commissioners, providing an opportunity for this workshop. The state has given the coastal cities and counties the police power and regulation of the beaches, but not unlimited authority. In a 1995 annual report of the Attorney General of the state of Florida, in talking about state sovereign land, said, quote, "In order to be valid, the regulations adopted must be reasonable and non-discriminatory, and they must tend to promote the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare," unquote. That is the imperative. The B1 zoning, public use, does not say anything about the ownership of adjacent beachfront properties and how that ownership can determine how the city regulates the B1 zoned property. Zoning regulations for each district should apply to everyone equally. Therefore, every beach rental location equally. The proposed ordinance does not promote safety, but puts all beach concessionaires, their employees, and the general public at risk. The proposed ordinance does not allow storage shelters on the beach. As storms bear down on us, we need the ability to get our equipment secured and our customers and ourselves off of the beach to take shelter. Sometimes when storm approaches quickly, that shelter is our trailer or shed. My family has been in business for 68 years in the same location. Therefore, we have decades of experience in providing for the safety of the general public. Our safety record proves that we can provide for what is imperative. The state of Florida demands that city and counties provide for what is vitally important to our tourism industry, and that is safety, morality, and the general welfare of the public recreating on our beaches. In considering changes to the proposed ordinance, I would ask that you allow sheds or trailers, the size to be determined by the concessionaires, for no business person's going to pay for more than what they need. Provide future security for businesses that are an asset to Cocoa Beach, such as the, quote, reasonable right of renewal, quote, based on performance for all businesses, not just those fronting private property. This would encourage continued reinvestment by all businesses. My parents started our family's beach rental business in 1955, adjacent to the 520 Causeway ramp, which today is Shepherd Park. This is the oldest business in Cocoa Beach that still continues today. Please help ensure that this reputable and reliable business can continue as it has for 68 years. Thank you for your time and consideration. And if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them.
I agree with everything in here. I mean, I don't see, it doesn't make sense to have you guys drag your stuff all the way to an upland property. It just doesn't, in my opinion. I don't know if you guys see that or not, but
It doesn't make sense.
it just doesn't make sense. And then to provide a future security for businesses that are an asset to Cocoa Beach, such as the reasonable right of renewal based on performance for all businesses. I mean, that just makes sense. You guys should reasonably, if you're doing your business well and right, then you should, I think, have the opportunity to continue your business.
And we had that until 2012. Then it got changed where anybody in front of, not publicly owned property, because there is Larry Wilson Park that's publicly owned, but city-owned property, which meant me and Ron Rosenberry, that was going to be put out for an RFP. So I'm asking that you treat us the same as the other vendors.
I mean, that seems reasonable to me.
I think this started when Jim McKnight was the city manager, and I honestly don't know how much is paid by this vendor, but he believed that it was very low compared to considering, you know, what they were able to make in that business versus what other vendors were paying.
Well, then
It
just-
wasn't, and And,
I mean, you can raise
It
the
was-
rates so everybody's the same, can't you? I mean, there's
well,
nothing
but
wrong with it.
sometimes, for instance, some vendors only can put out 15 setups,
Uh-huh.
and I'm not sure how many setups you have.
We only preset on ship port of call cruise days.
Okay.
We have
But how
always
many?
operated, somebody comes to us, we rent them an umbrella, we show them how to set it up, because we have the proper tools to do that. So we don't take up the beach except for 1 day a week in season, sometimes 2 days a week in season.
Okay.
I pay 19
I don't know how many.
I pay
umbrellas.
$19,200 for one location.
Okay. And how big
Most
is
of these
that?
vendors, I think, pay $1,350.
Okay, and how many chairs do you have?
I really don't know for sure, but I got 2 trailers full of them. So when you saw that trailer, okay, so everything that you see goes into the trailer in the evening. Nothing ever stays outside, and Robin can probably vouch for that. Everything gets stored in our trailers.
I think
But
it is-
you all have arbitrarily suggested less storage. You want to take away the storage I do have with an arbitrary figure. Let us determine what the needs are, not the city.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on, to me, it just sounds completely reasonable. You know what you need for what you're allowed, I guess. But at the same time, if you're doing your business well, I think you should have the reasonable thought that you're going to continue. Like you said, who's going to want to invest in their business if they don't know if they're going to have it next year?
Right.
And then
There was.
prices should
Yeah.
be fair across the board.
Yeah, there was
So-
litigation because she sued the city, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, I guess?
Correct.
Okay. And when the agreement was settled, she specifically, part of the settlement agreement, because she indicated that she was going to retire, she put in the settlement agreement that she would not try to renew.
That's not
This
correct.
time.
That's not,
It's-
I waived my reasonable right of expectation of renewal.
Right.
I didn't say I was going out of business.
No, you said that you were retiring.
Correct. And a lot of people I know were going to retire, and then we had a thing called COVID. You know, I don't understand why, yeah.
And I don't-
Everybody wants to retire at some point.
I'm not trying to be difficult, I'm really not.
But these
I'm
are.
really not. I'm just,
I
I'm
mean-
relating the history of it.
Know
and-
the history and, sucks that you sued the city, but as I understand, things happen, but everything that she had said here, to me, for all the vendors, seems to make sense. I mean, everything should be fair for everybody,
Oh, I couldn't,
and I don't know
Agree more.
how,
Did we have a
Keep-
rating system back then, before we renewed the vendor's license? Were they,
Jim handled it, and I honestly don't know how he did it. I know he had some concerns with regard to the, people had to take down their own things and return them, as opposed to most of the vendors set them out and then the vendors return them.
so why are we trying to make them take their sheds off the beach?
Only in emergency for.
They're not,
We've had a lot of complaints by,
We might have a lot of complaints by people in condos, because that's what they like to do.
yeah.
But. That's true, they complain about the boats.
Say stuff like that.
Look, here's the real deal. How many big storms have we had and how many problems have we had with our sheds and our trailers? So why are we trying to make a big deal about something that we don't have a problem? That's the whole thing about all tonight.
actually, we're not trying to make a big deal about it, but this is our 7-year review process. So we're going through the process to make sure that everything is going on the way that the city wants it to go, as well as looking at our ordinances and our codes and making sure that we're in compliance with state, federal, and local laws.
So if we leave the sheds on the beach or the trailers on the beach, is that going to conflict with any state laws?
I think we would be in conflict with the coastal construction line requirements.
Unless they're trailers.
I don't think there's a problem with the trailers.
I don't think
No,
so.
I
there's
think
no problem
it's-
with
I think
trailers.
it's the
And
sheds.
the thing is,
Sheds
the
cannot-
thing is, we're trying to minimize debris from blowing back up on the upland property owners, you know, I mean, I don't know if you guys were
Also-
anywhere near, when Katrina hit and saw the shorelines in Mississippi and Alabama, you know, there was stuff that blew inland 2 miles.
If they had their trailer in front of their house, it would be the same amount of mess than it was on the beach.
Yeah, but it's not gonna blow back in the ocean.
It went
The sheds
everywhere.
that we have are on sleds, and the other ones are Rubbermaid, so they can just punch them down. You understand?
I mean, a Rubbermaid shed, is that really even a real shed that you'd have to permit? Do you have to permit a shed that you stick, like a kid's play toy that you stick
You
together?
don't, and that, I don't know if everybody from the
If it's
building's
storing
on here,
things,
but
and it's a security issue.
if you want to put a shed on your property at your house, okay? And build a shed,
Your permit.
it has to be 15 feet from your primary structure and from your property line.
Would you have to permit that?
If you want to go buy a portable shed, a Rubbermaid shed or whatever, you can put it right up against your fence at your property line.
So you wouldn't have to permit that?
That's on a fixed unit. So again, I think we have
It
to,
would
yeah,
have to be
so that's a
permitted.
permit.
That has to be permitted.
And again, my understanding on your permit, I don't know for sure, but if I recall correctly, Randy didn't want to approve if the changes,
Yes, that's.
again,
why
then
we
the
didn't.
cost would be to you. So that was the reason, that's what I recall, at least when, starting last year.
Absolutely.
So
We talked
again,
about that
making
as
these
well.
changes then lets us move forward with permitting and so forth, some of the other, whether it's a trailer or whether it's a shed, whatever it might be. But this is where we have to get to. We have to get to some resolution so that we can permit whatever it is that it might be.
And
This-
Because you are requiring a permit.
But then the other thing
Yes.
she said, we're talking about is the reasonable expectation of renewal, okay? The reason we have renewals is because, you know, these aren't something that goes into perpetuity. I know you've been in business doing the same thing for 68 years, good for you. And you've been doing a good business and you've had good performance ratings and you probably got TripAdvisor saying you're a great place to go rent stuff from and everything else. But there has to be an element of competition so that there isn't an exclusive right in
Monopoly.
these 15 locations for the exact same people for perpetuity. So yes, there's a reasonable expectation to be renewed, but there is no guarantee that you're going to be renewed.
That's correct, because in your ordinance, the city can make a blanket, we're getting rid of everybody. Right now, everybody goes, that's in the ordinance. So you have an escape clause, you know, we don't have anything in perpetuity. And if you read some of the stuff in the packet, you'll see where I mentioned Volusia County, where they do have that right.
So let me just ask real quick, Becky, I mean, do we have some kind of a monopoly clause where somebody can't basically have a monopoly on that property? or-
These are saleable, so, which I've always kind of questioned why that was, but right now, anybody who has one of these licenses, they can sell it to somebody else.
But only for the length of the period
For
that
the-
they have.
Yes, that's correct. And I think that all of the agreements, the extension of this particular agreement was done as a part of a settlement. So that one does not have a reasonable expectation of renewal. I think the other ones do have it in their agreement. I don't know that it says anywhere that it's a renewal for that particular price. I think there was the desire to, I think that there was the desire to, at some point, find out what these, particularly the biggest franchise, essentially, would bring on the open market for somebody who was going to do a good job.
I mean,
That,
in all reality, you could raise the rate the next renewal if you wanted to get somebody out, I suppose.
yes, and I guess the only way to really know what they are worth is to put it on the open market.
There's another way you can do that. You can send a staff person down on a Saturday and have them go to each location and check how many people have rented. It's easily done. You could do it every Saturday of a month. You could, you can actually get the data you need by observing. You don't have to put one location or two locations out for bid.
Well, and I don't know if there is a uniform price that everybody charges, or whether the prices go up when the buses come in from the port. I just have no idea, and I don't know that the city needs to get in the middle of that.
I can tell you, I do not raise my prices for anything special, whether it's the cruise ship passengers or an air show or anything else. My prices are the same every day of the year, 365 days of the year.
Yeah, and I don't know that the city wants to get into regulated prices.
I don't think we should.
No, I'm just saying,
regulate
like.
No, I don't think so either.
I don't think, yeah, I'm just saying, like, I just think everybody should, if they're doing a good job, they should be considered to continue their
They
contract.
can have a reasonable expectation of renewal, but we can't guarantee them.
Right. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want everybody in the B1 zoning to be treated
Yeah,
equally.
no, I
The
agree.
regulations applied equally.
Okay.
And again, I think that's part of the plan, and for the 7 years is for us to equalize, which is also, if I'm not mistaken, I don't want to overstep where you're at in this process, Tanja, but I think Adrian mentioned it, so timing, so we've got some contracts due this year, this was discussed at I think at the last meeting, but next year is really the beginning of the 7-year process you're trying to put in place, so some contracts really being extended, for better terminology, for a year doesn't mean that they're being limited to a 1-year contract. But we do need to realign everyone to next year's date, I believe was what you were trying to do.
Yes.
That way,
Well-
that way it's not so confusing. I
So
get that.
that was everyone, not, I understand yours is a little different, but I think everyone else we were
We've got
trying
one
to.
contract that goes to 2027, and that's Jake's contract at either the Hilton Garden Inn. So his is the longest. Then you've got Jan Hosmer, you've got Ron Rosenberry, and one other.
So for what,
2024.
so what I understand is, Tanja, you're just trying to get everybody on the same cycle.
Yes.
That way it's not so confusing
And I want to
and
make
easier
sure
to.
that we have all of our, as far as what are we going to do with the sheds? Are we going to have sheds or no sheds? Are we going to have trailers? What type of trailers? What size trailers? What do the trailers need to look like? Is that going to be important to the city or not?
So again, I think the state agencies on the shed or a permanent device is a challenge. I do think that DEP could, we saw a document earlier today, and I didn't want to add it the last minute from DEP. Bob gave it to me wherever Bob's at. Again, there could be some regulation coming through to make sure that it's movable. So I do believe that's something we should still consider, especially if we do have other challenges, at least making the units something that can be pulled off and not something that's permanently attached to wood or your shed. It's just something that can be pulled, but we need to provide that information to these folks so they can go forth and make the changes. Again, knowing that we'll look at the contracts, every contract may not align right now. We're trying to get them to align, but we're also trying to put everything in order.
Yes.
Is there something that, so we're having issues with sheds because they're a permanent structure with the coastal,
Construction line.
and.
all movable though. Everybody's shed's movable, right?
Well, we
Yeah,
just
but-
saw
but
pictures
she's-
of ones that weren't.
But we're still having issues with the state because
Yes,
of
because they
that.
don't appear to be. You may say they're movable, but that's not the perspective of that, for them.
So
So
what's the result of us leaving sheds in that case if we're in conflict with the state? What is the result?
They
Are we
need
gonna
to,
get
they need
charged?
to be, at a minimum, the sheds need to be portable.
yes, portable. I suspect usually there's grants, so any of our grants that have to go through that agency will be susceptible to not being approved if there are such grants.
There's a penalty, that's the penalty.
Also, when
There's a
we're
penalty.
looking at, if you're building something, you need a building permit, and the building permitting process would not allow them to put an accessory structure there without following all of the guidelines for something in that location, which
But the
would
guidelines
mean-
say you can't build that side of the coastal construction line to begin with.
So our permits would be like invalid, right?
Right.
Really.
We can't
So
conflict with
We really can't
DP.
move the sheds.
Cannot, and we
That's
shouldn't.
the requirement.
think
We
that-
leave sheds then,
I
right?
don't think it would be
We have to
the
park up.
best choice to have the building official something that's outside of the requirements. So if we said the trailers that are movable, and we're following all of the other guidelines, which include protection of the dunes and things of that nature, then I think those would be the more reasonable process. But again, even with that, size matters. So if, how big is your shed, we need to say how big a shed could be. If you only are allowed 50 setups, then why do you need a huge shed? If you're allowed 100 setups, maybe your shed should match, your trailer should match what you can fit in a,
I mean,
100
if I
setups.
was a business owner, I don't want to build a bigger shed than I have to because I don't want to spend more money. So
Well,
I mean,
I think we'd have to go to trailers, it sounds like.
Trailers.
The
Again,
size of the
Adrian
trailers.
has trailers for, Adrian,
Or-
don't you have like?
We don't want
where's
to
she
be
at?
penalized.
Yes, yes.
Well,
What, your largest trailer, how many, I know you don't know exactly, but wasn't there like 100, 150 chairs in there and?
Yeah, yeah.
So the larger,
But my chairs hold up.
understand.
Yeah, they're
I
wooden
know,
chairs, and I have 2 levels of them.
How many trailers do you have?
3.
See,
so if
One in
you,
the main location, one in the satellite.
so if you build a shed on a sled, would you need a permit for that?
I would suspect, I don't,
if it's considered portable,
Because you could,
it's the same thing you can do in your yard. If it's a portable shed,
Then it's-
even a Ted's shed,
so why
if
not,
they bring it there on a truck and they pick it up and they put it in your yard, you can have it there without meeting the 15-foot and all that regulation.
so if you want a shed, then it sounds like you need to build a sled for it to sit on.
again, that's, the point that we had to come to
Simple
have
enough.
this there, so we can
Just-
process a
Why don't we
permit.
just say
Or have a
that
trailer,
any
either.
Or have a
struct-
trailer.
any,
They're in compliance with
any
FDP.
container for, equipment container must be portable.
So maybe that's the wording to use, it has to be a portable container, and not say that it's a sled, not state that it's a trailer, not state that it's
Right,
any,
right.
it's
It
a
has to be
portable
portable.
container.
And not requiring a building permit. Because.
So-
It wouldn't require a
Right.
building permit if
Right.
it's portable, just
So if
like
they-
if you put one in your backyard.
If they built a
Yes.
sled for it, and they built a shed on top of it, and they needed it to be, at least for small storms, anchored down, they could screw some anchors down and strap it to that.
I can get Bile Brothers to bring me a 40-foot cargo container and lift it over my house and set it in my backyard without a permit.
It's a portable container. Again, I don't even think a sled, I think we just focus on the portable container. Again, it's up to them to make that determination. Then we don't require a building permit, it doesn't put our building official in a position of having to state something is correct or not correct. That's where we're trying to get to.
Does the FDEP spell all that out, all those requirements, or they don't go to that level?
They
No,
don't, I mean, there's
it's
some
not a structure
documentation
if
in
it's
there,
formal.
but, you know, it's,
All they're looking for is structures.
yeah, we still need to go through the last document I know Bob sent, so I think we need to compare that to some of these requirements, see if there's anything in there, but, because I do think it's relevant, the document you sent over today. But we just need to look at it first.
Yeah, we good, we got all that, so we're gonna allow sheds on the, or portable structures on the
equipment,
beach. So
containers.
you can just make your thing look better by
Do we have to have a time limit for that, or
tear that
that's
thing
when-
down and put
when
it.
you-
That'll be a part of this, that'll be
It
part
will
of
be a
this.
condition of their re-permitting.
Okay.
And then again, renewals again, trying to move everybody out to next year, so there will be some extensions until next year. But the intent for next year is to realign everyone. We do, I think Connie, I have
Guys-
yours in my office. I haven't signed it, I want to wait till tonight, but we've got some of these out there.
You guys all understand and agree about that with the, trying to align all the dates? Everybody's cool with that?
So you're just gonna do like 7 years again, or are you gonna do just the 1 year lineup?
No,
You're gonna do bridge extension.
the intent is to give you the 7 years. Again, she's trying
What
to
you
put this
had,
in the
but-
plan, but we're trying to realign as many. Okay, whatever.
Still had, but get you guys all on the same date. That's what we're working towards. So everybody sounds cool with that?
So-
Couldn't you line everybody up by giving them their contract to a certain year right now, rather than giving someone just a year contract and then renewing it next year?
Again, I think it's fixing all of our code and having everything in place was the other piece of that. So there's, again, the reason for having it all meshed so that it complies was important for us. So that was the part of it, as well as our plan has to be submitted to the state. So you have to submit that. Is that part of your comp plan?
Yes.
That's going to happen in December, you said?
For a lot of you, yes.
Contract that goes till December 31st of 2027.
We will have to adjust a few of them. We understand that. So again, we'll have to, again, I just stated, I've got Connie's in my office that only goes until next year. So I've got a couple that are out there that are different. We'll have to readjust them. But we need to look at all of them as one, because we also need to make sure, again, to city attorney's point, the rates are comparable. So that needs to happen as part of this process.
One other thing, we have our franchise fees that are due in January. Still stay with that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Nothing changes that I've seen on that.
Okay.
Real quick on the allowable setups per.
Thank you.
So the allowable setups per location, I do have multiple locations, and there's different spots that are busier than the other spots. Some of the allowable usage based on the squares that you guys give us does not give us the amount of room to even service a quarter of the people at the hotel. Is there any thought to expanding that out, or are we gonna be allowed to then also act as a BTR, brick and mortar, to provide the service now that we're regulated to a certain amount of sets in that area? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'd like to look at that individually, because then that means you're able to overrun an area, better terminology, that somebody else is not able to do because it doesn't meet. So your area, whatever that is, okay, you can set up 50 chairs, but your service is really for 75 or 100. So you would like to expand into the other areas around you.
Based on being legitimate from a brick and mortar establishment.
Right, but I think we have to look at, we need to look at those rules established by commissioners before and bring that back. So I think that needs to be a separate item.
Okay.
Only because I do think we need a little more time to dive into that.
Right, and I think it goes back to her point as well, you know what I mean? We know how much we need to service out there, and if we do all get charged uniformed, like $19,000, I would lose money at one of my locations if that was my fee. So
You
this
have
is
multiple-
realistic.
You have multiple locations too?
Yes.
After
So
he's done, can
the
somebody
reason I
explain
have
to me the
multiple
location
locations
thing?
is because
He bought them out.
I bought them and the Upland property holder chose our services. So I don't think I should be penalized because we provide a better service, and that's just the truth of the.
I just didn't know I didn't know that was part of the, I didn't know how that worked in
People
our.
sell them.
So this is the next one
We're
coming
trying
up.
to
Conditions
minimize.
of renewal must be negotiated with the city for each term. Oh.
I was just wondering where you're.
Up here, please.
Tom, Come on
Yeah.
up and just stand behind her.
Let's hear from Tom first. We haven't heard from him yet.
Hi, Tom Williamson, 3425 North Atlantic. For the last 25 years, I've been a partner in Ocean Partners Associates. We own and operate the Marriott Courtyard, the Hampton Inn, the Days Inn, and the Best Western. I'm also president of the Cocoa Beach Area Hotel and Lodging Association. I did want to address C4. Now, obviously, it's important to us that we have the amount of product that we need to satisfy our guests when they come to the beach. We've been trying to nurture a resort feel in Cocoa Beach as long as I've been here, and we're still trying. And so I would just like to appeal to you to try to allow for enough product on the beach at each location to satisfy the need. I've been in touch with the hoteliers that are operating on the beach, and, you know, if necessary, we will certainly be open to building additional storage upland if it means that we need to house additional inventory. So I'd like you to consider that. And I'm just glad I'm not here talking about Airbnbs.
I mean, to me, that sounds reasonable if you have a hotel with, say, 50 rooms or 100 rooms or whatever it is. I mean, you probably would need at least enough room for 100 chairs or.
Yeah, and again, I think that's something we need to look at. The concern is that all of these folks have bought an area.
So Tom, I agree with you, but maybe that's for a different discussion for a different time. Okay?
I just have a quick question. Is there a list where all the permit holders are to be and which?
Yes.
Is that
On the website.
Yeah, I'll show you that list here shortly.
Real quick, underground runners, you got up, you wanted to say something before? Did you get your,
I was just, the location thing, I think there's 19 operating locations, so if there's only 15 licenses, what are these other people? Who are they?
I'm gonna go over that list.
And
Yeah.
also because I put in applications like, okay, sorry. So I guess I'm on the waiting list that they developed 4 years ago or recently, because the parking garage has created a demand for beach rentals on First Street South, which is a block south of Coconut. So I'm the most south beach rental that there is in Cocoa Beach. So people are getting angry because they're coming to First Street South wanting chairs and umbrellas, and I'm like 1-2 blocks away. So I came to the city a few years ago to ask if we could start setting up and maybe extend Coconut's agreement, and I would manage the whole little area. That way there's no competition, because that was the other thing in the past, is too many beach rental people next to each other create too much competition. So we were just saying if we could extend Coconut's license to First Street South to accommodate these new guests coming in from the parking garage. And I was told, no, you have to wait because there's 15 spots. And I've been waiting patiently for 4 years now. And there's trash down there that needs to be picked up. There's people that don't know where they're going when they come to First Street South. They get mad at me because I tell them I will not put an umbrella that far away because I can't see it. So I just wanted to be able to have a little stand down there with somebody greeting people, telling them the rules of the beach, picking up their trash. And I've been just waiting for 4 years. So I don't know if there's disagreement with other vendors on that, because I've talked to a bunch of people and they don't seem to have a problem with me setting up down there and right next to Coconuts. It's not interfering with any other vendor.
so like we said, this is something that we're gonna discuss then at a different depth, because we've got multiple people that are saying that they are not able to service their guests, so.
I mean, you could just make it 20 locations and top it off there if there's already 18.
We actually only have 15, and she's gonna explain.
Okay.
Yeah.
And again, that's all based on the last commission meeting, which we had not too many weeks ago, about not increasing our numbers. So again, we'll bring all that back to you at a future one. We'll definitely look at the areas and the space. Again, our whole goal is to be equitable. So how do we do that and still be equitable to anyone else around you? Just as Angela said, how are we equitable on either side to be fair? So
So 16 is a condition of renewal must be negotiated with the city for each term, and ownership disclosure will be required. So one of the things that we found is that when people go and buy out a project, location or vending license, then we no longer know who's out there. If they're not, if they're doing it with the upland property owner and negotiating that deal through the upland property owner, then how do we know, how did you get 3 or you have 2 or things like that. So we think that that's important that they come to us throughout that process and let us know what's going on out on the beach.
And that sounds reasonable to me, that we should know who's on our beach, even though you got the approval of the upland owner, you're still operating on the beach, so we should know.
We are ready to do that.
Okay.
Okay, next.
Should there be any discussion as to whether these should be saleable?
I think so.
I mean, I think, why not?
Yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, it is
Well, I'm
ours.
just
Well,
wondering, because there are,
If you, let's say you've got your license, you're a brand new guy, and you buy all your equipment, because you got your 7-year permit, okay? And you know it's gonna take you the first 2.5 years probably to pay for your equipment, and feed yourself, okay? And then you have a life event or something.
no, I understand that. People are buying these up, and so at some point, we may just have 1 or 2 vendors for the entire beach. And
Well,
that seems to be happening.
I think
They're
we should
still up for
definitely
renewal.
discuss that, yeah.
So I can add that to this other
Yeah.
item, and that way we can.
This is the next
I'm just
item
saying,
coming
you
up.
can't tell them that they can't sell it, because if they have a life event and they gotta move back to where they help take care of their parents that had a stroke or heart attack, or one of them died or whatever,
Maybe
then
you
they
can,
wanna be able to recoup what they've spent on all their equipment, they gotta sell it.
maybe you could limit it to no one vendor can own more than 3 locations, something like that.
So I think what we have
That's a
here before
possibility.
you is this one, right? Ownership.
Yes, ownership will be considered at the time of application, whether new or renewal, due to the limited nature of beach business locations and availability of agreements. The city does not intend for any business or individual to monopolize the beach business licensing agreements, and it is desired of the city to not permit one applicant to hold more than 1 license if there is other applicants for the same location who do not have a license. An applicant can be denied if they already have an agreement.
So yeah, I have a problem with that. Realistically,
The licenses that I've gotten are per the request based on the services that we perform and our customer service. And you can ask anybody in code enforcement or any of my people that are sitting in this room that care because they're here. These are my staff. We shouldn't be penalized for that because the hotel decided to choose us to be their beach service. Why limit me when I'm doing everything correctly and have done nothing wrong?
But the hotel is the one that owns it, right? You're just working through them.
So yeah, so the upland, you have to have an agreement with the upland property holder, which gives them the ability to say yay or nay on who's out there. And then you also have to have a beach franchisee agreement because the hotel, you have to pay them to be there. You have to meet all their requirements, which that's why I do meet all these requirements. Some of the city vendors, I don't know if they do. I don't know what it's like when you don't deal with an upland property holder. Everybody that I've ever worked with has made me get background checks every year. I've had to have insurance and stuff like that.
So is it the upland property owner that has the agreement with the city and then you're piggybacking off of theirs, or do you have the agreement with the city?
We have the agreement with the city, but it's only given to the upland property holder if they choose that person. Like they have the ability to regulate who runs their beach business. If you don't regulate, if they don't have the ability to regulate that, or let's say Tom can only have 1, or I can only have 1, but he wants me at Best Western and he wants me at Days Inn, and he also wants me at Courtyard in Hampton, then I can only have 1, so he has to choose someone else?
I'm gonna be a little cynical here, but why couldn't you just have multiple business entities?
Well, I can, but you're requiring insurance for each different one. Background checks, that's double the taxes. I do have that for Cocoa Beach Surf School and Flohana at the pier. which would operate under the 2 in the same location. I don't have a food and beverage one, but I believe my Fisher Park one does have that
I think the
allowance.
main issue, Jake, is that the monopoly aspect of it, where Walmart takes over the country and now all the small grocery stores are shut down because they can't compete.
Right.
I mean, the way it works, you just get bigger and bigger and it's easier and easier because you're making more and more money and then the little guy has no, he
Yeah.
has no.
I pay for Fisher, I pay $4,000 for Fisher, over $4,000 a year to you guys. It doesn't cover the cost at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And realistically, these hotels have chosen me to perform their service. So I don't know why I should be penalized for that because I do a good job, because
How do they choose you? Did you solicit them? Did you go to them?
So usually, it's been through word of mouth.
Word of
honestly.
mouth?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me ask the
Ask
city
Tom,
attorney a
he's the head of
question.
he's the head of the hotel association.
Jake, let me ask city attorney a question. So where it says it's the desire of the city to not permit one applicant to hold more than one license if there are other applicants for the same location who do not have a license. So he has a business. Somebody has the license for another business that he is now serving, okay? So you're saying that he can't, is that saying that he can't buy out that franchise and that agreement as long as there is an application on file for somebody who wants a beach rental business?
Right, because that would then
If, for
take the,
instance-
go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, if there were something where there's no upland property owner as at issue here, because
Well,
the,
then that needs to be, that language needs to be cleaned up to say,
Correct.
for that particular, is the desire to say not to permit one applicant to hold more than one license if there are other applicants at the same locations who don't have a license on properties that don't require upland property access or permission.
Correct.
that's a good catch.
Yeah, because I'm not competing for any of the public
You got
property.
that? You got that, Becky? Did you write that down? Because Lori got it. If you didn't, you just have to review the minutes.
We're not fighting over side streets.
We're not going for the, we.
Okay, I think we got it. We got it. Thanks, Jake.
I am going to make a follow-up comment to that because I did hear from some of the beach vendors saying that people were soliciting for their business, offering the upland property owner more money in order to buy them out or have the upland property owner remove them. So that was one of the reasons that we considered this piece.
That's not good.
So we can put, I mean,
How do we stop that?
can we put a document in with the, to the city attorney, can we put something in the contract that has some language in there in reference to, again, I'm just kind of looking, an agreement?
Isn't it like free market though? That's like rent control. I mean, it doesn't, I mean, I hate to say it, but like, I don't want the government controlling my rent, you know?
I think the sales have come about, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm guessing here. I think the sales have come about when the upland property owner has pulled the permission from an existing contract.
And that's, yeah.
And so people have lost their ability. It's not that they need to go home to wherever.
And that's kind of where I'm going, can't we do it with the upland, not
Yeah,
necessarily the others?
upland property is pulling the ability to, have their existing contract, and then they bring in somebody else.
Isn't that kind of hypocritical, isn't it? I mean, for somebody to say, I don't want a beach vendor in front of my business anymore. They're
No,
really
they don't
saying,
want
I
that
don't want
particular.
you.
Yeah, they don't want you.
Down,
Yeah.
That's discrimination, isn't it? If they're doing a good job and have a good performance record.
Just somebody outbid
Well,
them?
It
So it's just like,
could be
they all of a
because
sudden-
somebody outbid them.
All of a
I don't
sudden,
know.
that vendor that was currently there, it doesn't have a business anymore?
Yes.
That's apparently that's what I've
Yes,
heard.
and we talked about that person already having invested, with a reasonable right of renewal, and now someone comes in and outbids them, and they have to go. So that's one of the things that some of the vendors brought to me.
So there's businesses or upland owners right now that are just basically not being very good citizens and saying, hey, I want more money, and screwing people over?
Is that what's going on?
If Coconuts owns like a bunch of Airbnbs, since they have a license, they can.
She needs to come up here.
She needs to
Oh,
come
yeah,
up here.
Come over here, because,
So for example, Coconuts has their own license, and each license comes with a photo of where you can set up. So what you're saying now is that if they own adjoining properties around me, since I already have a license through them, I could set up at their properties without those maps.
No, what? That has nothing to do with that.
no, we're not talking anything about that.
No.
I'm just wondering why there's 15 licenses and multiple locations that are more than that.
You're talking about sales.
Yes. So real quick on,
Tanja,
Does Tanja have an answer?
were you gonna answer that, Tanja?
I'm gonna pull up the locations
Okay.
on the map.
And those were
And then-
provided at the last meeting. The maps were in the back of the room, handed out, so those were provided at that
And then
last.
Jake, after she's done, you
All
can
the
go up there.
And they're on the website too.
These are the locations,
Yeah.
these are the 15 locations, so.
They're not showing up, Tanja.
No,
On workshops? Becky, is there a time limit on workshops?
It's up to you. No, there's not. I mean, if you've had enough, you can,
Well, if it was a real commission meeting, aren't we supposed to have a vote if we're gonna go past
well,
a certain
It's a
time?
workshop.
This is a workshop, this isn't a commission meeting.
I mean,
You can take a nap.
but y'all
after all
can,
that.
somebody can make a motion to table the rest of it, whatever you want to do.
We still have a whole nother agenda to go through.
We're pretty we just got the bunnies.
Can we try to move this along a little more succinctly?
okay, so we have the 15 locations. I'm showing it here rather than a map because I think that map that we have is a little bit jumbled up, and that's when people are getting confused. So location 1 had 2 licensing, but the beach food portion of that is going away. So then so that's 2.
Can you tell us the names of the businesses?
Okay.
So again, let's put that on the website for tomorrow, and you guys can just download it and then reach out to us and ask questions, if that's okay, okay with all of you. That way you can print it and dissect it the way that you would like to.
Yeah, so you can see here that some locations, like at the pier, has 4 licensing at that location, but that's location 14. And then location 15 has 1. So, and then there was some that went away, which is why some got added back in.
Are those 4 licenses all held by the same owner?
No,
So we grandfather this
one that
in.
we were talking about,
Okay.
where at the pier, we may have multiple owners. So you can see we have Marcus,
But it's
Lopez
one
has
location with 4 people.
4 different, yes.
So they're grandfathered in and they're not allowing that anymore, I guess, is that correct?
That's what we'd have to do.
That's,
Okay.
yeah.
But they have different type of activity as well, chairs, food, surf lessons, so,
So that's how we have 19 vendors then on 15 locations.
yes. So I will
Okay.
put this on the website for you guys to see.
So I think that answered the question, right? So just to move along, Jake, you wanted to get up?
Just real quick, I just
Yeah,
wanted
yes.
to say that the licenses that I've gotten were per the request. There was something that beach vendor did that upset the hotel. I didn't go out looking for them. I was referred from other hotels, but this is who we use. I don't know what other people charge them and stuff. I've won the last 2 that I had because I could do room charges and other people couldn't. This is something the hotel needed. Also, she was out there smoking on the beach and her shed was a mess and she would show up some days and some days she wouldn't. So realistically, that's how I ended up with the ones that I have. And I've never paid for one. It is always somebody I offer to buy their equipment when they're trying to retire, and 2 of them were just trying to quit. And she said she was too old, couldn't do it anymore. So I bought her stuff and also gave her the information to do hair braiding at some of the other resorts that I work at. So don't think that I'm out there like trying to take your business, but they have just been requesting me, and I don't feel like I should be penalized for that at all.
Okay, thank you, Jake. Tom?
I just want to reiterate that.
Just come on up and,
Yeah, our process is that it's just like any other contractor. You know, we bring them in, we interview them, we find out what they're like, what kind of business they run, and then we do references. And so, I've never heard of, at least in my experience, of through the hotels, somebody coming in and offering some kind of incentive to take over an operation. I'm not familiar with that, so.
okay, thank you.
It's, pretty straight up.
Sounds good, thank you. All right, so we all,
Tanja, do we have anything else we need to cover?
I think we're pretty much there now, right? Yep, that was it. So that was basically that, limiting the sale of the agreements,
Okay.
the last one.
So we will add another agenda item to a future work session and bring back some solutions or propose options anyway for the areas. Location and numbers and expansion and that type of thing.
okay,
We did have one more thing on our agenda tonight, and that is the animal control agenda.
thank you, guys. I appreciate all your input.
Thank you. Thanks, Bob.
This one should be simple, Tanja.
I'm sorry.
This one should be simple.
Yes, this one should go pretty quickly.
Two, I think there's 2 out
Basically,
there.
A cat.
Feral cat?
Becky, did you want to do this summary?
Oh, I'm sorry. All right, this is somewhere here. Okay, this is new business, item 4, animal control, discussion about sending a memo to Brevard County Animal Control, rabbits. Representative Tanja McCoy, Director of Development Services, recommendation, discuss.
Real quick, hey, guys, would you mind, if you're gonna talk this out there, it'd be good, and we'll have someone from the public that wants to talk about the rabbits. Sorry for putting you through all that first. So, does anybody on the council want to talk first before we hear them, or?
I'm in favor of supporting a resolution that's, just showing our support for this
Endorsing.
cause. And, not wanting to pledge any money or anything, but,
Well, and then we were talking about sending a letter to the county.
well, it would be a resolution from the city, similar to what other cities have done. I mean, I'm sure Becky could plagiarize the heck out of whatever ones they've already put together in a legal way.
The option was a letter, as we discussed with the commissioner, or again, a resolution, the same thing to the county. Again, we use their services, so for animal services. So it would really it can go to the county commission and to the county manager. I believe animal services are within Sheriff Ivy's domain, so again, the copy would go to him too at that point, because he's the one providing the service.
You have any concerns, Caroline?
No, I think that would be a good way to go forward with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
And then,
So I'm going to do a resolution, correct?
If we, in the future, the county kind of goes along with it and adopts some kind of ordinance or something, then we could potentially adopt some kind of ordinance that would
So-
restrict the proliferation of this problem.
So we're basically just saying that we will adopt the county ordinance, whatever it decides to
No,
do,
you
or?
didn't.
Just
You
give it
said
an endorsement.
we
Supporting,
endorse
supporting
doing
like
something
a
about the
solution
problem.
Okay.
to the rabbit dumping
And then,
problem.
so basically, and the resolution has to do with rabbit sales or disposal of
I don't
rabbits?
think even that specific,
Or-
just addressing what animal control and supporting the whatever we can do to help with the dumping of rabbits and the
Release, the release of,
yeah.
okay.
Have there been other resolutions by?
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
probably.
there's an Indian Harbor
Okay,
Beach.
there's the one you have in the
Yeah.
Harbor Beach.
Indian Harbor already
Oh,
did
that's
one.
an ordinance?
It is, but we can do it as a resolution if you'd like to look at it from that
Okay.
perspective.
So, that's like, they're saying Becky could use that as a guide.
Sure.
Were you happy with the resolution from Indian Harbor Beach?
It's an ordinance.
We don't
It's
have
an
a pet
ordinance, so we
store.
can do it as a resolution.
We don't have a pet store, so I don't think we should address.
Yeah, we don't have a
Yeah.
pet store, and I
Yeah,
don't think
so
we'll
I don't
we
think
have
we
a
should
vote.
address
Okay,
Yes,
well,
sales.
well,
Yeah.
the
This is
agenda item
really
says send a memo.
Prohibiting sale of pets.
Yeah, we're not gonna do that because we don't
Yeah.
have pet stores, so
Right.
This
I've
doesn't
just-
address,
Yeah.
yeah, this does not address,
Release?
well, it doesn't address rabbits.
I think
It's
I think it does,
addressing pets.
Okay. Then here, let me see if there's this
All
one.
right, so
memo.
the agenda item says we're gonna send a memo
Yeah.
about animal control with focus on rabbits.
Again, that was based on, Commissioner was received, I think, some information, all of you did, but she brought forth maybe 3 meetings ago, asked that we consider something and bring it back, asked you all. So in conversation, we looked at several different options here. There were ordinances and there are some that are just notes or letters. So we said, okay, what if we look at a memo to the county? Again, they're the ones who actually control what we do here. We don't have any pet stores. So trying to figure out where your support to their cause can come in and also show the county that you're supporting the cause. So that was the reason we were looking at the letter, but it can be
Okay,
whatever you
the
wish.
letters, let's start with the letter.
yeah. I
All right.
think that's,
Can we just say letter, we endorse this ordinance, although it doesn't?
no, I wouldn't endorse
No.
that.
No, that ordinance just says you shouldn't sell pets, you shouldn't sell animals.
Right,
Yeah,
But we don't have any pet stores.
yeah.
right, but
We don't have pet stores, so that doesn't make sense. Okay,
Well, you could have a puppy mill in your backyard,
well,
Or
if I want
rabbit
to,
mill
if I want to
in your
rent
backyard.
dogs in my
This is-
backyard, I'm gonna do
or a
it.
chicken mill in your backyard.
Recognizing that happens and not supporting that, like that's what the letter would, yeah.
All right. Are we good with that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I'll do a letter from the mayor, maybe?
Okay, let me hear what she has to say.
Or all
'cause
of
she's-
commission, would you like to all sign it?
Yeah.
Let me have public comment.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Key West is an ordinance too.
You read your stuff ahead of time?
Digging.
Again, I'm Ashley Burke, I'm a resident of Melbourne, so I really appreciate you taking the time to talk about this, really, it means so much. I would like to share that we have a draft resolution that we could pass along for you to review if you'd like to do that. It would include support for a prohibition on backyard breeders as well, because that is something that could happen or may already be happening in Cocoa Beach. There's a situation in Melbourne of a resident who is breeding rabbits just to hand out to kids in the neighborhood, and the kids are letting them go. And that could happen anywhere in Cocoa Beach. So even though you don't have pet stores, you could still have a rabbit colony situation going on. So this is something that I would like for you, or respectfully asking that you show your concern to the county. So not just in support of a county ordinance, but hopefully expressing that concern that the county needs to do something at their level. Did I did I cover that as much? But I can send along that draft resolution if you'd like to review it.
Yeah, you might as well send it,
no,
just let us take a look at it.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I mean, we can look at it.
Yeah.
This doesn't really have anything to do with this, but made me think of something. What about the coyotes on the beach eating the turtle eggs? Is there anything that you guys want to talk about as far as?
Technically, they actually trap some coyotes on between Minuteman and like Murphy Park. And the ones we used to see on our cameras in our neighborhood a year, 18 months ago. And cats that we had a year, 18 months ago. Haven't had. Nobody's seen any of the coyotes in quite a while, so. I know they travel on a cycle. They don't stay in the same place all the time.
Are we allowed to trap them or anything?
No.
That was county animal control again.
We brought FWC here last year, and they gave us a kind of an education. We did an open house over at the other city hall before we left there, and there's a lot of restrictions. Again, I think there has to be 40 acres and a permission to even move one, if you do trap one, to move it to that location, so per animal. And then killing them off just creates them to procreate at an even faster rate. So if their pack is normally 4 and you kill off 2, their next pack will be 8, or whatever the numbers are that they know to inherently. That's what they do. So
They have bigger litters.
Yes, they do. So it was amazing what we learned from FWC, but we did bring them in and educate. They do go after the cats. I mean, we had a lot of cats at one time missing, unfortunately. Again, the best we can do is just educate through Facebook, CBN, and just making sure we tell people to watch them, watch their animals before you just let them out, because it definitely was creating a problem on the beach.
Okay.
And again, eggs and whatever, so it was a whole series of issues.
There's been non-coyotes that have got into turtle deaths also.
Yes. Yeah. And I know they have a large coyote issue, Cape Canaveral, and mainly toward the Kennedy Space Center area. They're very large because, again, it's freedom. It's just free roaming in that area.
Okay. I
And
think that.
another telltale sign is Maritime Hammock Park.
Yeah.
There's the wild kind of bunnies. Quite a few of them down there now, where a year and a half ago, you couldn't find one.
Right.
They're bad. Cottontail ones.
So that concludes that part, right? We all good? So staff reports and announcements?
Again, we have a meeting on Thursday night, so I think we will probably have a revision coming out tomorrow sometime. We are removing one of the items from the agenda, but other than that, I don't think we have anything else, Mayor. Thank you.
All right. Commission reports or announcements?
I will not be here Thursday, and I'll fill out that absentee form.
Okay.
Commissioner Jackson, I do believe will be back on Thursday, so we should be fine with the quorum.
I can call in, it's
Okay.
hit it.
We're adjourned.
Do you want to call my phone, Jeremy, and that way I'll put it on?
Was it spot?
Go ahead.
Effective tonight? It sounded like he got dropped off.
Well, I don't know that he was watching it on YouTube. No, he dropped off because he had to go to a meeting.
Oh,